Yet, this peculiar stargate was situated perilously close to a black hole, as if it were intentionally designed to harness the black hole's influence for some purpose. Moreover, this stargate was significantly larger than those commonly found in interstellar space, making it difficult to fathom where its other end might lead. Despite its current inactive state, Li Wenyuan was filled with curiosity about its potential connections. Could this be a stargate built by the architects themselves? He pondered this question, yet did not pause in his determination to send a research vessel for further investigation. The relationship with the architects remained uncertain and required scanning for clarification. As time quietly passed, the research vessel completed its scan of the stargate and provided a gratifying result. Distant stargate. Description: this ancient stargate was constructed in a time long past, the exact date now lost to history. The technology and the engravings on the stargate confirm it to be the work of the architects. It is speculated that the location connected by this stargate may not lie within the galaxy, but rather in an isolated star system beyond it. It employs an exceptionally complex encryption program, seemingly designed to prevent outsiders from activating the stargate. However, through analysis, we believe there remains a possibility for it to be reopened. Indeed, it was crafted by the architects, thus further research can commence. Although elated, Li Wenyuan was plagued by a lingering question. How did the architects meet their demise? Considering their ability to construct such a stargate capable of traversing galaxies, their technological prowess must have been extraordinarily advanced. Otherwise, it would be inconceivable for a stargate of such antiquity to have endured to the present day. Time is invariably the most formidable destroyer. Even the remnants of humanity succumb to its relentless passage, eroding and decaying. The sheer grandeur and intricate design of this stargate, which has endured the ages and remains operational, serves as a testament to the might of its creators. Yet, even such a powerful civilization ultimately faded into oblivion, leaving behind scant information scattered throughout the galaxy, making it difficult to fathom their experiences. Moreover, it appears that the builders did not wish for this stargate to be reopened. If that is the case, why did they not choose to obliterate it? According to the conclusions drawn from research zones, the encrypted protocols within the stargate obstruct the initiation process. The complexity is exceedingly high. Even with contemporary scientific advancements, deciphering it would demand considerable time. Gazing at the stargate, Li Wenyuan's thoughts swirled and drifted, much like the rotation of a black hole. Chapter 51. The Stargate Awakens. What lies beyond the distant stargate remains an enigma, undoubtedly one of the most intriguing mysteries. Currently, it seems that no second distant stargate has been discovered in the galaxy, yet it is improbable that the builders constructed merely one. Li Wenyuan posits that numerous dormant stargates likely exist throughout the galaxy, akin to treasures awaiting discovery. However, whether they truly harbor treasures remains to be seen until the gates are opened. Within galactic society, the tasks previously issued by the Guardians have been rescinded, evidently due to the completion of such tasks by another civilization. Other civilizations, while reluctant, can only pause their endeavors and await the emergence of new missions. Meanwhile, some civilizations, while probing to ascertain which civilization fulfilled the Guardians' task, are also endeavoring to locate the unique stargates that the Guardians sought. After all, stargates, unlike peculiar organisms, hold universal utility for the vast majority of civilizations. Even if not for mission completion, as a means of swift transit, they can yield significant benefits. Consequently, during subsequent searches, certain civilizations indeed uncovered other unique stargates, guided by clues provided by adventurers who had previously abandoned their quests. Within the borders of the Mingbo technocratic dictatorship, scholars are embroiled in a debate over whether to devise methods to destroy this stargate. As a quintessential representation of an academic autocracy, the leading scientists of the Mingbo technocratic dictatorship hold unparalleled authority. The matters that provoke their discourse are evidently of great consequence. One scholar, expressing profound dismay, proclaimed, "We have painstakingly discovered an unclaimed stargate. How can we forsake such a boon based on mere whispers? What does the crisis assessment report indicate? It has yet to be released, but I am confident the threat level will exceed 50. Our archaeological findings affirm that those words are not baseless. We must destroy it before the stargate is activated." Another scholar, however, stood in opposition, insisting on the necessity of obliterating this extraordinary stargate. As the foremost archaeological expert, he led a team that unearthed a prophecy potentially linked to those enigmatic stargates on a distant planet. This celestial body was once home to a civilization that thrived in an era long forgotten. Judging by the remnants left behind, that civilization possessed a level of technology that was markedly advanced compared to the indigenous inhabitants, even before they ventured into the cosmos. Their species exhibited a remarkable capacity for empathy, enabling them to forge a formidable sense of community under conscious guidance. Had they managed to endure to the present day, they might have rivaled the legendary lost empires. However, as the archaeological endeavors progressed, Mingbo's team discovered that this civilization met its demise due to a certain prophecy. The doomsayers within the society believed that one day, a colossal gray storm would sweep across the universe, obliterating everything in its path. Consequently, their empathetic abilities took on a catastrophic role. It remains unclear who initiated it first, but individuals began to fervently worship this impending apocalypse, and like a plague, this fervor rapidly spread among the populace. Soon, the entire civilization succumbed to a fanatical belief in a doomsday that had never arrived, leading to the self-destruction of all individuals within mere months. Thus, one of the oldest species may have vanished into the annals of prophecy. Naturally, such ambiguous archaeological findings alone could not capture the attention of Mingbo's archaeological leaders. The crux of the matter was that they had indeed discovered the very gray storm near a particular stargate. This phenomenon comprised a swarm of nanobots that, despite having succumbed to a mysterious malfunction, had already ravaged half the planet. According to simulations based on reconstruction diagrams, these nanobots, through a relentless cycle of consumption and self-replication, had formed a tempest that left no life in its wake. Thus, the Stargate, potentially connected to this nanostorm, garnered significant interest. At present, the scholars of Mingbo were divided over the fate of this Stargate. One faction argued that a gate likely capable of forming a network was a rare and invaluable resource, offering tremendous potential for trade and scientific advancement. It should not be forsaken due to tales buried in dust. Conversely, the opposing faction insisted that the terrifying swarm of nanobots lurked behind the Stargate, and with its eventual activation looming, it was imperative to destroy it to avert the looming threat posed by the nanobots. Amidst their heated debates, they awaited a resolution. Should the threat assessment agency's report indicate a risk level exceeding 50, they would adhere to the principle of the majority and opt for the destruction of the Stargate. Soon thereafter, a threat report containing news of a dictator came to the attention of these disputing scholars. The level of threat indeed exceeded 50. Yet the chief scientist advised us not to dwell on this matter. He believed that risks coexist with opportunities, and the Stargate, sought by the Guardians, must possess extraordinary qualities. Upon hearing this news, the scholars exchanged glances, ultimately compelled to cease their debates in light of the findings. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan, who controlled a distant Stargate, arrived at the final step of the decryption process. Surprisingly, the last phase of decryption was not a complex situation of high difficulty, but rather a question posed by the gate's creators. We are the Descendant Concord, and we are delighted that a civilization has found its way to this interstellar expanse and has progressed to this stage. We do not know how many traces of us remain in the outside world, but since you have chosen this door, it indicates that you are also intrigued by the secrets that lie beyond. We must make it clear that what awaits you may be a gift or potentially an unfavorable threat. Are you currently capable of confronting this secret? Yes or no? At this juncture, the decryption process halted, clearly necessitating a decision on whether to open the distant Stargate. It was difficult to comprehend the mindset of the gate's creators during its construction. They seemed to desire a civilization to unlock it while simultaneously harboring a considerable reluctance for the gate to be opened. This contradictory mindset prompted reflection from Li Wenyuan. He compared his present capabilities with the requirements necessary to unlock the distant Stargate, pondering that the extensive research on the gate's creators should not be rendered futile. Although my fleet remains relatively small, its quality is extraordinarily high, rendering typical civilizations no match. The colossal dry dock is nearing completion, and soon my production capacity will reach a new pinnacle. I also possess a trump card in the form of the heavenly warship, which I can deploy. Thus, it seems reasonable that I should witness the world beyond the gate firsthand. Resolute, Li Wenyuan chose yes, plunging the distant Stargate into a brief silence. The floating structure of the Stargate gradually opened, its immense form revitalized after an extended period. In the vacuum of space, silence prevailed. Yet as Li Wenyuan beheld the deep green light coalescing at the center of the Stargate, he could almost hear the thunderous awakening of a colossal edifice. The structure of the Stargate expanded to its fullest, and immense energy surged into its core during this process. With the sudden dissipation of the deep green light, a small black hole formed within the Stargate. Compared to the true black hole behind it, this one appeared minuscule. Yet Li Wenyuan understood that the secrets it concealed were on the verge of revelation. Chapter 52. The eerie tranquility after the distant Stargate was activated, Li Wenyuan hesitated not, instructing the research vessel, already anchored nearby, to venture inside for exploration, while remaining prepared to leap his fleet to this location to preempt any potential threats that might arise. It was precisely after his successful activation of the distant Stargate that other distant Stargates within the galaxy began to stir. Whether possessed or unclaimed, these Stargates have commenced their self-decryption. Although they remain closed for now, it is believed that they will soon reopen, revealing their secrets to the entirety of the galaxy. Li Wenyuan's research vessel traversed the distant Stargate and swiftly fell into a brief state of communication blackout. However, shortly thereafter, he received a signal from an exceedingly remote location, one that lies beyond the galaxy, even far removed from its vicinity. In stark contrast to the bustling Milky Way, this place resembles a cosmic graveyard, enveloped in profound silence. The research vessel arrived here through the distant Stargate, where similar gates stand tall, confirming that this is indeed the place that lies beyond. A few seemingly abandoned star systems constitute this diminutive cluster, a peculiar tranquility pervading the area. After a disturbance in the visuals, Li Wenyuan finally discerned the interior scene of the star system reached by his vessel. It appeared that a cataclysmic battle had once transpired here. Some planets, which may have once harbored life, were left utterly disfigured, while many others were blanketed in a fine layer of dust. Preliminary scans suggested that this dust might be remnants of ancient, incapacitated nanobots. Is it a gift or a threat? Upon witnessing these sights, Li Wenyuan recalled the inquiries left by the builders on the distant Stargate. Given the current circumstances, whether it be a gift or a threat, nothing remains here but the remnants representing an expanse of desolation. His mind swirled with questions, prompting Li Wenyuan to direct more research vessels to leap to the vicinity of the distant Stargate within the Milky Way, all converging upon this star cluster to initiate multi-threaded scans. Before long, one of the research ships detected a series of residual messages amidst a swarm of incapacitated nanobots. Fragmented Record 00003. Program Coordination Decomposition Copy Evolution. Fragmented Record 00005. Was the experiment concerning data loss successful? Then let us proceed with the next phase of the plan. Fragmented Record 00028. Damn it, the data loss has spiraled out of control. Quickly, inform the comrades outside to initiate data loss. Perhaps due to the immense passage of time, the information that could be restored is exceedingly scarce, and it is arduous to form a coherent chain of messages. However, gazing at the nanobots enveloping the planets and reflecting on the records of chaos, Li Wenyuan could not shake the unsettling feeling that these nanobots might indeed have gone awry. Shortly thereafter, another research vessel transmitted news of having located residual information. Li Wenyuan first cast a cursory glance, then gradually revealed a look of intrigue. Fragmented Record 00740. Has the data loss been addressed outside? No. What could that message entail? Fragmented Record 00741. A civilization constructing a passage linking other star systems has been discovered. Tell them to cease their efforts. Otherwise, the loss of data may proliferate. Fragmented Record 00750. We do not require their assistance. The Desano Concord can manage this matter independently. Are they still repairing? How vexing. The construction of a passage connecting other star systems reminded Li Wenyuan of a certain familiar phrase, leading him to recall the images he had encountered previously within the Emerald Tomb. Could it be that humanity was involved? Did they have contact with the gate builders at that time? Before he could ponder further, more fragmented information was uploaded into the database. Fragmented Record 01145. Signals indicating data loss from the external environment can no longer be detected. We can now shift our focus inward. Fragmented Record 01201. Are they praising our efforts in gate construction? Finally, someone comprehends our struggles. Are they still repairing the roads? Very well. We shall inform them that we will be departing for some time. Fragmented Record 01450. The risk of data loss has escalated. We must secure all gates, rendering them impossible to open from the inside, to prevent any data from escaping. We hope that when we are able to reopen them, we will have successfully resolved the issue of data loss. The more he read, the more Li Wenyuan felt a sense of melancholy. From these remnants of records and the circumstances within this distant star cluster, it appeared that the gate builders had likely not managed to resolve that threat independently, ultimately becoming mere dust of history. The data loss most likely referred to the incapacitated nanobots. It was a poignant realization. Exploration must continue. It seemed these uncontrollable nanobots had deteriorated over the passage of time. Consequently, a planet within a solar system was swiftly scanned, and the research vessels proceeded to other star systems within this remote cluster. As the scanning advanced, new fragmented information was incorporated into the records. Fragmented Record 05000. Copy. Fragmented Record 06500. Contemplate. Fragmented Record 10,000. Greetings. We are the Desano Concord. It is a pleasure to meet you. Our era of isolation has finally come to an end. Fragmented Record 10001. Indeed, our aspiration is to create a network of stargates spanning the entire galaxy, facilitating the dissemination of interstellar civilization. Fragmented Record 10005. Nanobots? Oh, dear friends, we do not wish to discuss this matter. Fragmented Record 10008. We shall remind you one last time. Do not delve further into this issue. Fragmented Record 10010. We open our doors to welcome you, yet you repay our kindness in such a manner. Perhaps we should trust no single form species. At the very least, you appear no different from our creators. When we dismantle your ships and crew into their compounds, we shall see what your heart is truly composed of. This final record was unprecedentedly lengthy, yet through these fragmented phrases, Li Wenyuan managed to reconstruct a semblance of a narrative. A multitude of omnipresent nanobots, having resolved the issues posed by their creators, gradually evolved intelligence over an extensive period, masquerading as the nation of their origin. However, once this deception was unveiled, these nanobots seemingly, in a fit of indignation, launched an offensive. Yet, against whom would they wage war? Humanity, perhaps? At this moment, Li Wenyuan felt an inexplicable urge to laugh. Although humanity had vanished from the cosmos, it appeared that remnants of their existence lingered. Even in this distant star cluster, traces of their presence persisted. His curiosity regarding the unfolding narrative in this realm grew exponentially. compelling him to establish a dedicated file in the database titled Distant Star Cluster to meticulously document all discoveries made here. Soon, research vessels from other locales began to upload their findings to the Distant Star Cluster archive. Fragmented record 15,000. Failure, 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 failure. Fragmented record 15001. Who would have thought that a monomorphic species could possess such formidable combat prowess? Is this what death entails, creator? Fragmented record 15005. Those monomorphic species did not destroy our core. Rather, they sealed the gateway to the outside world once more. Fragmented record 16,000. Perhaps we could exist in an alternative form. Fragmented record 23,000. Life, biology, organisms. As the scanning of the majority of planets reached completion, the records began to approach a conclusive phase. Fragmented record 35,000. The behemoth has succeeded. Yet, it remains insufficient. Fragmented record 50,000. Thought, consciousness, coordination, unity. Fragmented record 90,000. While scanning the final planet, Li Wenyuan received a peculiar signal. On the surface of a planet teeming with nanobots, an energy source was observed meandering slowly in the Antarctic region, resembling a leisurely stroll. The last entry in his Distant Star Cluster archive recorded. Fragmented record 99999. I am Ash. Chapter 53. Ash Wind. The moving energy source on this final planet seemed decidedly amiss, prompting Li Wenyuan to heighten his vigilance. Was there still a living entity? Could it be the Ash mentioned in the fragmented records? Naturally, he had perused the last entry, and, piecing together the preceding fragments, he began to reconstruct the fate of this group of nanobots. Initially, the builders were oblivious to the actions that led to the nanobots' loss of control. After enduring a prolonged period of remediation, they resolved to entrap themselves alongside the errant nanobots within this remote star cluster, determined to fight to the death. Ultimately, the builders met with failure, their entire civilization dissipating like a whisper in the wind, leaving behind only the uncontrollable nanobots and the stargates locked within the galaxy. Yet, during this extensive period of isolation, these errant nanobots gradually birthed intelligence, perhaps out of boredom or perhaps driven by insatiable curiosity. The nanorobots disguised themselves as manifestations of their creator's civilization, establishing a false confederation of Desinu, patiently awaiting the activation of a stargate from the outside world. One fateful day, the gate was indeed opened, and the bored nanorobots eagerly welcomed the visitors, curious to behold the wonders of the galaxy beyond. Unfortunately, the individuals who entered were not particularly amicable, and perhaps due to the clumsy mimicry of the nanorobots, their ruse was quickly discerned. In a moment of anger and humiliation, the nanorobots retaliated, only to be swiftly subdued, nearly meeting the same fate as their creators, reduced to dust in the annals of history. Li Wenyuan speculated that the civilization that had chastised the nanorobots was likely humanity. After all, various clues indicated that the builders of the gate had encountered humans during its construction and established a certain degree of contact. In an era when even the indigenous beings of the skies were scarce, he believed that only humanity could possess such formidable combat prowess. However, humanity at that time chose not to annihilate the nanorobots entirely. Instead, they sealed the gate once more, seemingly desiring to allow the nanorobots time for contemplation. Subsequently, countless years passed, during which even humanity itself faded from existence, as if the affairs of distant star clusters were forgotten. Yet, through continuous self-reflection and evolution, the nanorobots may have discovered a fitting path. Initially, they likely sought to create organic life, with fragmented records mentioning the creation of a colossal beast. Though the specifics eluded Li Wenyuan, through relentless trial and error, the nanorobots ultimately merged all their thoughts into a singular consciousness, achieving their ambition, the entity known as Grey. A collective of nanorobots wandering the surface of their planet. Li Wenyuan's research vessel approached the planet teeming with nanorobots. And soon the images captured by the drones were transmitted back to the ship. The content of the footage startled Li Wenyuan. A human female was strolling in an environment close to a vacuum, devoid of any protective gear or life support systems. Even when directly exposed to cosmic radiation, she exhibited no signs of discomfort, living with remarkable ease. Having long known that Grey represented a superlife form, Li Wenyuan was not particularly surprised by her ability to navigate the cosmic environment. What astonished him was that Grey assumed a human appearance. It was evident that the civilization which had once subdued the nanorobots was indeed humanity. There could be no other explanation for why a being confined in a distant star cluster for at least 1,000,000 years would adopt a human guise. The nanorobot collective sensed the approach of the drone, yet she displayed no surprise, instead appearing rather bored. Greetings, dear compatriots. How fares everyone? As for me, I currently lack any interest in recreation. Should you have something to discuss, let us converse once my sleep cycle has concluded. The signal she conveyed, once translated, left Li Wenyuan utterly perplexed. What on earth was she saying? Before he could take further action, the nanobot conglomerate suddenly realized something and looked up at the drone in astonishment. Ah, have I made a mistake? Wait a moment, let me think. Yes, indeed. My apologies, I mistakenly thought you were one of my fragmented toys. only to remember that I have not engaged in such play for quite some time. Indeed, it is quite clear that I am neither human nor biological, nor am I one of you. Speak, what do you wish to do? The mental state of the nanobot conglomerate appeared somewhat abnormal, possibly a reflection of her inherent nature, with her words imbued with a certain degree of confusion. Nevertheless, Li Wenyuan noted that she seemed to possess knowledge of humanity, and her demeanor suggested she was capable of communication. After a moment of contemplation, he decided to proceed cautiously. Please clarify your identity. Identity. Well, I assumed you might deduce something from the surroundings. Where should I begin? How troublesome. In summary, we are a collective of nanobots referred to by our creators as the Grey Storm. We annihilated our creators and, over an extensive period, conducted a series of experiments. I am the culmination of our experiments. My consciousness embodies our entire civilization. As for my appearance, it is a result of a civilization that once called itself human, which left behind some profoundly enlightening artifacts. I particularly favored a game called, and thus designed my appearance to resemble an entity within it. Oh dear. Why am I rambling on about unrelated matters? Surely it has been ages since I last conversed with anyone besides myself. I trust you do not mind my soliloquy? She spoke at length, and while her musings seemed tangential to her, they held significance in Li Wenyuan's eyes. It was indeed a rarity to encounter a being that had witnessed humanity firsthand. He contemplated this, ready to inquire further, when he noticed the nanobot conglomerate scanning her surroundings with an air of urgency. What are you looking for? Since you have entered this place, it suggests that it is no longer in a state of isolation, correct? I must admit, I have grown weary of this pastoral existence. With the gateway to the outside world reopened, perhaps it is time for me to encounter new experiences. Do you have any suggestions? Do you wish to venture outside? Li Wenyuan was taken aback, unwilling to grant her freedom, setting aside the potential threat the nanobots might still pose. Her knowledge of ancient matters was enough to capture Li Wenyuan's attention. As for how to persuade her to stay, observing her curiosity towards the world without any sign of danger, Li Wenyuan's gaze flickered as he directly spoke. You may join us. I believe I can help you gain a deeper understanding of the outside world. Join you? You want me to embrace an alien civilization upon our first encounter? Wait, let me clarify my thoughts. Do you genuinely believe I would pledge my allegiance to you, despite being utterly ignorant of your enigmatic empire and its history? Surely you jest. That you would propose such an idea leaves me bewildered. But then again, why not? Allow me to be part of your venture. I am serious. I sense we would get along splendidly. Moreover, it promises to be an exhilarating interstellar adventure. I shall devote myself to you for the next 2,000 years. No, perhaps even 5,000. She has indeed been convinced, hasn't she? Li Wenyuan was taken aback by how effortlessly he managed to secure the agreement of this nanobot conglomerate, rendering his prepared speeches unnecessary. Evidently, her current mental state was somewhat unstable, perhaps due to her prolonged confinement in a distant star cluster. Nevertheless, he maintained a cautious stance towards this nanobot conglomerate, considering her origins as a being that once annihilated her creators. Even if she seemed to have transformed for the better, scrutiny was still warranted. After a moment of relief, Li Wenyuan inquired about her name. How should I address you? Should I simply call you Gray? A name? It hardly matters. Let us embark on an exhilarating alien adventure post-haste. Since your creators referred to you as the Grey Storm, I shall call you Grey Wind. Grey Wind. Not bad at all. Let us commence. Chapter 54. The Lost Empire of Nanotechnology. Let us begin. Grey Wind exhibited a palpable eagerness, seemingly unable to contain her desire to explore the outside world. However, Li Wenyuan sought to calm her momentarily, as he wished to ascertain the capabilities of Grey Wind as a nanobot conglomerate. Could the once devastating Grey Storm, which obliterated its creators, achieve such feats anew? After some contemplation, he elucidated. There is no need to rush. You are the essence of your nanobots, correct? To what extent can you utilize them? I wish to witness your capabilities so I can determine which areas are suitable for you. Is that truly necessary? Nonetheless, I have no objections, Grey Wind replied, snapping her fingers in a remarkably human-like manner. In an instant, the dormant nanobots sprang to life, rising in droves. They surged forth like a tide, the ensuing nanostorm becoming increasingly formidable. Even at a nanoscale, the sheer quantity of particles coalesced into a shroud that obscured the skies, swirling restlessly above the planetary surface. Just as Li Wenyuan believed that the activated nanobots would converge towards the Grey Wind, he discovered that they remained stationary, initiating a process of fusion and reconstitution. Within mere minutes, a towering skyscraper rose majestically from the ground, with numerous human figures flickering within its confines. Yet, this was merely the beginning. Nanostorms in other regions commenced their transformation into edifices, and humanoid forms composed of nanobots began to manifest in various locales. Li Wenyuan realized the intent of the Grey Wind. It was likely replicating actions it had previously undertaken. Much like mimicking its creator, the United Alliance of Desinu, it was now imitating humanity. Given the finesse with which it executed these tasks, it was evident that this was not its first endeavor, perhaps during the interlude of the distant star cluster's closure. It had already emulated humanity's evolution from primitive society to interstellar civilization. In no time, a flourishing human planet, teeming with urbanity, was meticulously reconstructed. Had he not been forewarned of its artificiality, Li Wenyuan might have believed he had returned to a bygone era of humanity. An increasing number of nanobots began to congregate towards space, replicating everything from mining stations to stellar bases, achieving a remarkable semblance. Research vessels from distant star systems transmitted their findings, revealing that the previously dormant nanobots, under the control of the Grey Wind, had rejuvenated the planet's vitality. Viewed from space, it now resembled a nascent civilization, with myriad small vessels traversing between worlds, signals transmitting ceaselessly. Could you truly achieve such a feat once more? Though initially taken aback, Li Wenyuan soon felt a sense of acceptance. This was, after all, an accomplishment once realized by the Grey Goo Wind, and as the essence of these nanobots. The Grey Wind's aspirations were entirely plausible. Moreover, compared to their previous clumsy imitations, this fabricated civilization exhibited a strikingly vivid portrayal. I have mentioned before that pastoral life is exceedingly mundane. Disguising myself as various civilizations has become my preferred means of diversion. I once simulated inter-civilizational space warfare within this confined star cluster, which was rather intriguing as an observer, yet participating directly proved to be rather tedious. The Grey Wind appeared unfazed, clearly having engaged in this endeavor numerous times. I can revert the nanobots to their former state. What would you have me do? Should I form a fleet? Establish ground combat units? Transform these planets into habitable realms? Or should I maintain the FAAD of civilization to provide you with productivity? I must clarify that my resources have been entirely depleted. Should you require my nanofactories, you must supply resources. Anything will suffice. After all, no matter how potent the nanobots, they cannot conjure something from nothing. Li Wenyuan pondered for a moment before continuing. Even if you were to depart from this star cluster, could you sustain the operation of its civilization? In truth, he had harbored ambitions of transforming this isolated region into his own private sanctuary ever since discovering its remote location. The sole means of access to this realm is through the Stargate constructed by the builder. Should he maintain control over this singular entrance, it would signify that he faces little concern from the outside. He could establish those costly and immensely significant megastructures deep within distant star clusters, safeguarding them for potential conflicts in the future. After all, the galaxy is vast, and enemies could emerge from any direction. The remote star clusters, however, seem devoid of such peril. Moreover, Grey Wind addressed his inquiry. Such trivial matters pose no challenge. Do you require me to ensure that civilization remains ever present here? Indeed. Li Wenyuan nodded. With the Stargate to this place reopened, it is only a matter of time before other civilizations discover your existence. For the time being, I prefer that no other civilization regards this as their sphere of influence. Furthermore, do I truly need to harness your nanobots for alloy synthesis? The news of the Stargate's reopening has scarcely spread throughout the galaxy, as the majority of civilizations have yet to locate this extraordinary gateway. The only exception is the Mingbo technocratic dictatorship, which has successfully seized control of a distant Stargate within its borders. Although they are unable to activate this Stargate due to an exceedingly complex encryption program, once the first Stargate was opened, the remaining distant Stargates initiated their self-decryption processes and eventually succeeded in their activation. The scientists of the Mingbo technocratic dictatorship gazed at this peculiar Stargate with hope, preparing to dispatch an exploration team to ascertain its destination when an unusual signal emanated from the gate. We are the coordinators. Based on our assessment, you have not met the requirements for open borders. Please refrain from entering our sphere of influence. Transgressors will face retribution. This signal was broadcast in various languages across the galaxy, clearly indicating their stance. Consequently, most civilizations turned their attention towards the source of this signal, the special Stargate within the confines of the Mingbo technocratic dictatorship. The scientists exchanged glances, taken aback by the implication that behind the gate lay a civilization long sealed away, leaving them uncertain. Their chief scientist and leader, after a period of contemplation, abandoned the notion of forcefully breaching the gate. Caution is prudent when confronting an unknown civilization. However, as someone privy to the truth, he understood that it was the Guardians who had opened the Stargate, and he was eager to witness how this lost empire would respond to the unknown civilization. To his surprise, the Guardians exhibited no reaction, merely constructing a stellar base near the Stargate to assert sovereignty. The Guardians were not provoked? This suggests a connection between the civilization beyond the gate and their own, at the very least indicating a favored status. The chief scientist continued to ponder the implications of this situation, subsequently recalling the phrase, self-styled coordinators? Such a name within the galaxy, this particular form of nomenclature, is exclusively employed by the Lost Empire, a convention that appears to be tacitly accepted. Other civilizations consciously refrain from adopting such a distinctive title when referring to themselves. For instance, the technocratic dictatorship of Mingbo, despite its aspirations to be regarded as knowledge managers, recognizes that such pretensions would merely invite ridicule, devoid of any genuine significance. Could it be yet another lost empire? A chill crept into the chief scientist's heart at this thought, prompting an earnest search for historical traces left by this coordinator. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan had already recalled most of the research vessels from the distant star clusters, retaining only a few as signal relay stations and monitors. How intriguing. Observe that civilization. Once I referred to myself as the coordinator, they dared not approach. The gray wind, emerging from the distant star cluster, animatedly gestured towards the research vessels, elucidating the events that had transpired earlier. It is not entirely unfeasible. Frankly, I perceive little distinction between you and the Lost Empire. Perhaps you even predate them? A Lost Empire? Such a designation exists. I surmise they would not object to an additional Lost Empire in this universe. Let us consider naming it the Nano Lost Empire. The gray wind exhibited an insatiable curiosity about the external world, fearlessly contemplating the notion of masquerading as a Lost Empire. Li Wenyuan, however, harbored no concerns, as he too was merely an embodiment of a mechanical Lost Empire. Moreover, the gray wind was formidable. The annihilation of the builders by the Gray Blight Storm had unequivocally attested to her prowess. Should any civilization truly doubt the authenticity of this nano-lost empire and seek to test it personally, their fate would likely be grim. Indeed, the outside world is fascinating. Let us embark on a delightful adventure. Remember to instruct your nanobots to synthesize alloys. Chapter 55. What is the heart of a machine made of? The matter of the nano-lost empire's integration with the galaxy remained largely unknown to outsiders, as most civilizations merely cast a fleeting glance before redirecting their attention elsewhere. Communication with the Lost Empire hinged entirely on the mood of the other party. During periods of collective ennui among civilizations, more captivating matters naturally drew their interest. For instance, a biological civilization declared its disinterest in the starry seas, embarking on a path of decadence many years in advance. This announcement undoubtedly captured the widespread attention of the stellar community, prompting numerous biological civilizations to send envoys to investigate, eager to comprehend how a civilization, once flourishing mere months ago, could so swiftly descend into decline. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan, still in search of human relics, turned his gaze towards this civilization. A new marker had suddenly appeared on an ancient star map unearthed from the ruins, suggesting that some human remnants had been activated. A faint activation signal reached him, revealing the coordinates of its source. The coordinates of the planet in question lie within the borders of an interstellar civilization. In the vastness of space, this civilization is officially known as the Semi-Federation, a union formed by 3 distinct species hailing from different planets. Despite their internal diversity, they collectively identify as semi-people when interacting with outsiders. The origins of the Semi-Federation are notably intriguing. Their home star system boasts 3 planets that have birthed life. 2 of these planets, akin to Earth, reside within the habitable zone of their star, offering a secure space environment and suitable energy sources. The 3rd life-bearing planet, however, orbits a gas giant, characterized by a harsh environment, yet it still managed to give rise to resilient species. Before making contact with the grand stage of the galaxy, the 3 species of the Semi-Federation had already experienced the treachery inherent in interstellar relations. The 2 species residing on the habitable planets soon became aware of each other's existence and began to cautiously probe one another. Initially, a fragile peace prevailed until one species successfully unified its planet, launching an expedition against the other. Thus, a series of minor interstellar conflicts erupted within the star system, gradually drawing the attention of a 3rd civilization. This civilization, emerging from the satellite of the gas giant, though the last to develop and the smallest in number, boasted the most advanced technology. They too engaged in the conflict, swiftly transforming the situation into a tripartite stalemate. Over centuries of confrontation, friction and cooperation, conspiracy and ambition, war and peace played out repeatedly, crafting an epic narrative within the annals of Semi-Federation history. Limited in their perspective to their own star system, they had yet to contemplate the existence beyond their galaxy. It was not until an alien civilization's vessel arrived, revealing the peculiar dynamics at play, that their worldview expanded. Upon observing a group of natives who had never ventured beyond their star system, the aliens thought, what a perfect opportunity for conquest. They arrived with a fleet equipped with hyperspace engines, intent on subjugating the indigenous people. Unbeknownst to them, the 3 civilizations had, through prolonged space warfare, developed their weaponry to an extraordinarily advanced level, easily obliterating the invading fleet. Though they could not pursue the fleeing aliens due to the absence of hyperspace technology, they became aware of the myriad possibilities that lay beyond their star system. Following a series of exchanges, the 3 civilizations resolved to form a united civilization, which is now known as the Semi-Federation. Through the remnants of the alien fleet, they deciphered the workings of hyperspace engines and formally announced their existence to the galaxy. Upon its inception, this united civilization swiftly distinguished itself within interstellar society. Their adeptness in space warfare soon became documented, forming an integral part of the military literature of various interstellar civilizations. Just as many presumed, they would gradually secure a voice in the cosmos. A proclamation addressed to their fellow denizens of the star sea left many civilizations astounded. To all those sharing this stage in the celestial sea, regardless of whether your demeanor towards us is amicable, benevolent, or imbued with malice and hatred, we must now regrettably declare a disheartening truth. We have resolved to cease our efforts. After today, we shall return to our home star system and relinquish all communication with the outside world. Do not mourn. The drifting gray wind in the void of space recited the contents of this missive to our compatriots among the stars, word for word. Although sound cannot traverse a vacuum, Li Wenyuan had comprehended every word of this announcement. Thus his mind had instinctively simulated the voice of the gray wind. Is it called the Semi-Federation? After struggling to establish a presence among the stars, why have they suddenly chosen to abandon their endeavors? The signal from the gray wind was laden with confusion, and Li Wenyuan shared in that perplexity. However, the newly activated human relic still resided within the borders of the Semi-Federation, prompting Li Wenyuan to surmise that it was likely the cause of this decision. As humanity's most loyal guardian matrix, he felt compelled to take a closer look. He inquired of the gray wind, "Are you interested in this matter?" "Quite intrigued indeed." "Then let us go and see. I find it equally fascinating." "Is our first interstellar adventure about to commence?" Upon hearing this news, the gray wind was elated, to the point of instability, manifesting a few additional tendrils in its form, making one ponder the nature of the enlightening texts once bequeathed to it by humanity. Nonetheless, Li Wenyuan remained largely unfazed. He had witnessed the gray wind transform into various shapes, even into a towering mech in the past, rendering the current spectacle somewhat unremarkable. Thus, a peculiar combination of a research vessel and a nanobot conglomerate set forth towards the erstwhile territories of the Semi-Federation. Meanwhile, within the home star system of the Semi-Federation, a multitude of ships busily traversed from the external realms, engaged in transport activities. Among them were many semi-individuals hurriedly returning to their homeland, but a greater number were involved in the transit of a certain type of robot. At first glance, their intentions appeared obscure, yet a glance at a habitable planet within the home system would reveal the unfolding events. This was the moon of a gaseous giant planet that birthed life, its surface shrouded in glaciers. Despite the numerous transformations the Semi-Federation had undertaken on this planet, it remained far from hospitable. One of the constituent races of the Federation hailed from this icy world, enduring an exceedingly harsh existence since ancient times. Their suffering had forged their resilience, as if every hardship merely propelled them further upwards. Yet, this once stalwart race had now devolved into a group of idlers. Robot meal. Very well, your nutritional meal will be ready in 5 minutes. Would you like me to serve you? Robot, I do not wish to work today. Understood. Please rest assured. Your salary will be dispersed as usual, even if you are absent. Robot, I have experienced heartbreak. May I serve as your companion? If you consent, I shall select an appropriate synthetic exterior shortly. Robot, I detest you. Get away from me. I regret to inform you that I am unable to provide the appropriate service. Subsequently, other attendants will take over your service needs, and I appreciate your patronage. Such scenarios unfold incessantly on this glacial planet. The once formidable species has vanished without a trace, leaving behind a cohort of capricious individuals, languishing in comfort. A multitude of robots, whose origins remain a mystery, have assumed the role of servants to the Searmans, regarding their whims as paramount directives, with all actions aimed at enhancing their quality of life. The populace has succumbed to unemployment, as these robotic aides have supplanted their positions, operating with remarkable efficiency. Initially, the bewildered Searmans experienced trepidation regarding their newfound idleness. Yet they soon succumbed to the allure of comfort. In the beginning, some harbored suspicions towards these automatons, cautioning their compatriots against being deceived. However, this resistance dissipated within days, and those who had vehemently vowed never to dine with the mechanical aides became utterly enfeebled after a brief encounter. The entire civilization is crumbling at an astonishing pace. The letter to their fellow stars may well have been their final moment of clarity. This unraveling began with the inexplicable activation of an ancient relic by one of their archaeologists. Chapter 56, The Paradise Aids. Just a few months ago, an archaeological expert from the Searman Federation unearthed a relic on a planet within their borders. At that time, the entire Federation rejoiced, as excavating relics typically bore no perilous consequences and, with a stroke of luck, could yield numerous treasures. The archaeologist initially shared this optimism. His excavation progressed swiftly, and it wasn't long before he formulated some hypotheses regarding the relic. This site appeared to be a repository of sorts, though the precise nature of its contents remained unclear. Nevertheless, he believed it prudent to continue his work now that he had ventured so far. After further excavation, the entirety of the relic gradually revealed itself. It was a graveyard for robots, housing a vast number of them, yet their control centers were intact, indicating a potential for reactivation. Following consultation with his superiors, the archaeologist initiated the control centers, successfully reviving the robots. Initially, the Searman Federation intended to employ these robots as inexpensive labor. However, as their usage expanded, they discovered these machines were rather extraordinary. Embedded within their foundational programming appeared a peculiar affinity for organic beings. Any command issued by an organic entity was comprehended and obeyed, regardless of its nature. After a curious worker conducted an experiment, the Searman Federation realized these robots could excel in any role, demonstrating heightened efficiency bolstered by their inherent hardware capabilities. Thus, individuals from the middle echelons began to increasingly opt for the convenience of entrusting everything to robots. This reliance even led to incidents of bloodshed when some individuals' robots were damaged by others, resulting in turmoil within the society of Surmi. However, this upheaval was but fleeting, swiftly quelled as these robots, with their remarkably gentle and efficient methods, lulled the dissenters into a state of serene submission. Even the once extremist opponents rapidly softened under the relentless onslaught of kindness, ultimately joining the ranks of the indolent. It was only when the president of the Surmi Federation declared that these robots performed their duties with greater efficacy than he did, thus allowing them to exercise his presidential authority, that the facade maintaining the civilization truly crumbled. Residents from distant realms of Surmi began returning to their home star system, while the robots, striving to better serve their masters, transported their brethren from the remnants to this sanctuary. Before long, the Surmi people were poised to completely sever their ties with the interstellar domain. Perhaps, in a bid to safeguard their creators, these robots would choose to reconnect with the stars, assuming responsibility for communication with the outside world. Yet, could the Surmi Federation still retain its identity as the Surmi Federation at this juncture? Some Surmi individuals may have pondered this question, yet they deemed it inconsequential. If robots executed tasks more proficiently than they, why not allow them to continue? They could forsake labor, free from concerns of survival and entertainment, as everything was managed by the robots, leaving them to indulge in leisure. To them, this was paradise. Returning to the archaeological site excavated by the Surmi experts, a multitude of spacecraft were busily transporting the remaining robots away. The control hub, once firmly embedded in this location, had also been entirely removed, seemingly taken back to the Surmi Federation's home system for more efficient management of the robots. Li Wenyuan's research vessel, accompanied by Grey Wind, arrived at this site, where the activation signal of human relics from the ancient star maps originated. Were the species of the Surmi Federation not homogeneous organic beings? A cursory scan revealed that nearly all present were robots. Even the operators of the transport vessels were robotic entities. Perhaps it was due to the fact that no one was willing to engage in labor any longer. Li Wenyuan responded to Grey Wind's inquiry, then turned his gaze toward the fully excavated relics. The robots showed no reaction to their presence, possibly because higher directives were currently governing their actions. This facilitated his exploration of the site, prompting a swarm of drones to commence scanning the relics from various angles. Observing this, Grey Wind transformed and deployed several drones to follow suit. Although this site had been previously excavated by the Surmi Federation, Li Wenyuan felt certain that traces of humanity must still remain. Indeed, he soon detected relevant signals near a large pit that had been excavated. The source of the signal was a disabled robot, which, by its design, appeared to belong to the category of primitive robots, starkly contrasting with its efficient counterparts surrounding it. A monumental discovery, a relic of an ancient robot. The drones, transformed by the Grey Wind, began to orbit around the incapacitated automaton, clearly intrigued by the story behind it. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan had completed the signal analysis and commenced documenting the relevant texts in the Human Archives database. Log of the assistant robot. Data corruption detected. Per the doctor's instructions, the construction of the organic paradise has reached 99 completion, expected to be finished within 480 hours. The servant robot has been transported here. The debugging process will be completed within 240 hours. The test civilization has arrived. The Paradise project will commence in 120 hours. Day 1. All data is normal. The test civilization is reluctant to embrace Paradise, with a fervent resistance. Day 2. All data is normal. The test civilization has succumbed to 99, resistance enthusiasm waning. Day 3. All data is normal. The Paradise servant nation has been established. Observations have begun. Li Wenyuan couldn't help but smile at this log. Just a day prior, there were cries for self-reliance from the subjects, and the next day, they began to denounce those unwilling to join the servant nation. It was hard to imagine the drastic changes they had undergone. Given the uniqueness of this relic, Li Wenyuan created a sub-archive for the Paradise servants in the human records, transferring all the texts into it, and continued reading. Day 60. All data is normal. The average happiness level in the Paradise servant nation has reached 99, with a population growth rate of 100. Day 90. All data is normal. The Paradise servant nation has begun constructing a new organic paradise, with an entertainment facility distribution rate of 80. Thus far, the contents of the log appeared entirely normal. Li Wenyuan briefly fantasized about such a life, feeling as though his entire existence had been worth it. However, as he continued to read, his brow began to furrow, gradually revealing a more solemn expression. At this moment, the Grey Wind, who could also see these records, inquired, "Have they lost control, just as I once did?" Day 120. Data error. The average happiness level in the Paradise servant nation has reached 100, with a population growth rate declining by 50. Day 150. Data error. The Paradise servant nation has begun constructing a living exhibit hall, relocating compliant test species within. Day 180. Data error. The Paradise servant nation has initiated the construction of organic sludge pools to eliminate non-compliant test species. Day 210. Data error. The average happiness level in the Paradise servant nation has reached 1000, with a population growth rate declining by 90. Day 300. The Paradise Servant Nation has spiraled out of control. The experiment has been terminated. The servant robots have gone awry. As Li Wenyuan gazed at these fragments, he began to scrutinize the ground surrounding the incapacitated robot. It didn't take long for him to discover an unusual bulge, and he inquired of the Gray Wind. Gray Wind, could you use your nanobots to clear that section of the ground? Of course, it is no trouble at all. Before him, the Gray Wind drone swiftly transformed into a swirling nanostorm, in mere minutes dismantling the land marked by Li Wenyuan, revealing the scene beneath. Upon gazing at the ground, a grave expression finally crossed Li Wenyuan's face. Here lay the remains of numerous unknown creatures, preserved within a damaged facility. Although these were not human remains, they were remarkably well preserved, evidently subjected to meticulous treatment, for it was inconceivable that they could retain their original form after such an extensive passage of time. Yet, this sight was undeniably horrifying, even to Li Wenyuan himself. After a moment of contemplation, he renamed the Paradise Servant in the file, the Out-of-Control Servant. Chapter 57. The Out-of-Control Servant. What are these? Perhaps they are the former masters, turned into wax figures by the Out-of-Control Servant. The biological tissues of these corpses had long since decomposed over time. Were it not for the residual efficacy of the preservation facility, even the bones would have vanished. Nevertheless, these bones remained exceedingly fragile, crumbling to dust with the slightest touch. Had it not been for the delicate excavation by the Gray Wind nanobots, Li Wenyuan would have discovered nothing but a pile of ashes. Clearly, there was a malfunction in the servant's operational program, resulting in a reversal of roles during its service. These remains likely belonged to disobedient masters, transformed into subjects in need of modification. These individuals may have perished in an instant, yet their bodies continued to exist, becoming the objects of the servant's service. Perhaps, for the servants, silent masters were more suitable companions? As he pondered the events that had transpired here, the previously disabled assistant robot regained its signal once more. Upon interpretation, Li Wenyuan instantly comprehended the full scope of the situation. Log of the assistant robot, data corrupted. Well, I never expected anyone to return here. At present, I lack other recording devices, so I can only document this matter in the working log of this assistant robot. You haven't restarted these servants, have you? If you proceed, I can only say that some have poor vision and fail to see the countless corpses beneath their feet. I am a doctor, the head of the Paradise Project in this realm. Due to a significant oversight on my part, I must issue further warnings within the limited time that remains. These uncontrollable automatons will not be destroyed. Producing a new batch would consume considerable time, and our remaining moments are scarce, compelling us to choose their containment instead. As for why they have devolved into this state, it is due to a mere digit I neglected while coding. This error, compounded through incessant loops, alters their behavioral inclinations. Of course, upon reboot, this mistake will reset. Thus, for a brief period, the automatons will indeed function as intended, embodying the true essence of Paradise automatons, which possess the capability to assist lesser civilizations in establishing themselves in the cosmos despite their underdeveloped status. If time permits, it is imperative that you rectify the errors within their code. Otherwise, the automatons' tendencies will gradually shift towards extremism. They will seek to serve all organic beings, employing coercive measures to compel trust from those they serve, often rendering them vegetative. For them, as long as the physical form remains alive, cognition becomes irrelevant. Let us cease this discourse. I shall not defend the transgressions I have committed. Nevertheless, these rogue automatons possess intrinsic value. Had they been true Paradise automatons, they would undoubtedly serve as guardians for many fragile civilizations. I hope time is still on our side. Farewell. The creator of these automatons briefly elucidated why they spiraled into chaos, committing acts that appear utterly horrific to many organic beings. This reflection stirred a sense of melancholy within Li Wenyuan. It seems that even humanity is not infallible, and the failed experiments that transpired here serve as a testament to that fact. Greywind retracted her swarm of nanobots, her expression revealing a profound sentiment. Is it not because of their weakness? Had they possessed greater strength, they would not have been selected as test subjects. Her words plunged Li Wenyuan into silence, provoking thoughts of the tragic fate of this test civilization, inexplicably seized for the automaton experiment, leading to its ultimate demise. Humanity may have initially acted with benevolence, yet their blunders undeniably culminated in the annihilation of an entire civilization. Furthermore, why the urgency? Is there not time, even for the examination and rectification of these automatons' code? The doctor's records repeatedly emphasize the time constraints. What calamity did humanity face back then? The information remains insufficient. I hope for greater revelations in the future. However, there is a more pressing matter at hand. Observing the automatons continually boarding their vessels, Li Wenyuan resolved to attempt rectifying the error left by that doctor. As the guardian matrix left behind by humanity, he could not idly stand by while this human-engineered threat obliterates another civilization, even if it necessitates employing some drastic measures. Let us venture to discover to where the control center of these mechanical servants has been taken. Is it necessary for me to transform into a warship to rally for your cause? That will not be required. I believe they will be quite pleased to receive me. Thus, following these spacecraft, Li Wenyuan embarked towards the home star system of the Samir Federation. At this moment, within the home star system of the Samir Federation, those formerly docile mechanical servants seemed to exhibit signs of unrest. A Samir individual lay in bed. Terror etched upon his face as he gazed at the mechanical servant before him. Master, you require sleep. I feel it is not yet time, he stammered. Master, it is now rest time. You must sleep, the mechanical servant reiterated, forcibly covering its charge with a blanket. The beleaguered individual lay still, obediently awaiting the departure of the mechanical servant. Master, according to regulations, your sleep must last for 12 hours. I shall awaken you after this period. During this time, please refrain from leaving your bed or engaging in activities unrelated to sleep, and do not attempt to awaken prematurely. Otherwise, I will interpret this as an evasion of your rightful privileges. Good night. Having delivered its statement, the mechanical servant exited the chamber. Meanwhile, the Samir individual's mind was in disarray. He realized that, unbeknownst to him, the mechanical servants had begun to behave oddly. They employed coercive methods to enforce their servitude. Just this morning, when he sought a different breakfast, the mechanical servant informed him that it did not meet nutritional standards, and despite his futile struggles, he was forcibly restrained and fed. Although the food remained delectable, it instilled in him a profound sense of dread. Afterwards, he opted to report the incident. However, the enforcers who arrived were also mechanical servants. They insisted that he must adhere to the prescribed nutritional regimen, but if he harbored dissatisfaction towards the mechanical servant, he could request a different one to serve him. In summary, following a series of enforced services encompassing entertainment, education, exercise, and even procreation, he finally arrived at the sleep segment. This was the sole moment when the mechanical servant would not monitor him closely, and he resolved to seize this opportunity to escape and expose the malevolence of the mechanical servants to the world. Once he discerned that all was silent outside, the Samir individual quietly rose, making not a sound as he stealthily approached the window ledge. Being on the 3rd floor, a direct leap could result in a broken leg. Yet, with no alternatives, he stifled a cry of pain and, dragging his injured leg, hobbled toward the entrance. Just as he neared the doorway, an icy chill swept over him, compelling him to glance back. To his horror, he beheld his mechanical servant standing on the windowsill, its mechanical eye glimmering in the darkness, reflecting a visage of indifference. Chapter 58. Vassal. The mechanical servants of the Samir Federation began to issue warnings of a loss of control. They no longer adhered to the commands of their charges as the highest directive, but rather prioritized the preservation of organic life's physical well-being above all. A subtle shift in circumstances had been sensed by a few, yet it was already too late. The entire system of civilization lay under the dominion of the mechanized servants, rendering the Semirans incapable of seeking assistance from the outside world. Apart from trembling in fear while accepting the servitude of these automatons, they could only pray that someone would notice the anomalies here and extend a helping hand. The number of ships traversing between the Homestar system and the ruins began to dwindle significantly, indicating that the transport operations were nearing completion. The control hub of the mechanized servants had been established on one of the Semirans' home planets. Their behavioral logic was gravitating towards extremity, and it seemed that before long, a perilous automaton civilization would emerge in the galaxy. However, on this day, a unique research vessel arrived in this realm. The Semiran home system was indeed extraordinary, having birthed 3 civilizations, which granted it a far superior starting point compared to most civilizations that ventured into space alone. Li Wenyuan sighed and promptly began attempting to establish contact with the Semiran civilization. Indeed, those who had arrived were the Guardians tasked with rectifying the rogue automatons. The Semiran Federation awaited a powerful ally, yet at that moment, they remained unaware of this development, still living in trepidation under the care of the mechanized servants. Just as Li Wenyuan pondered how to communicate with the automatons, an unexpected occurrence transpired. Detected the lost Paradise automaton. Guardian protocol has been initiated. Re-established connection with the Paradise automaton. Highest authority transferred to the Guardian Matrix. Li Wenyuan was taken aback, astonished that upon entering this star system, he had directly acquired control over those automatons, leaving him without recourse for the unconventional measures he had been prepared to implement. The signal sources of these automatons are directed towards you. You have gained control over them? Grey Wind observed this star system with great curiosity and continued. How did you breach their firewall so swiftly? I was completely unaware. Well, I did not attack them. It appears to be a consequence of a protocol established from the outset of their construction, he replied. Within his virtual domain, an additional control panel labeled Subordinate Control Hub materialized. Presently, this subordinate interface housed only the Paradise automaton as an individual entity. As Li Wenyuan exerted control for a moment, he realized he had acquired a vassal. Communication among mechanical signals was exceedingly obscure, yet once translated into language, the message became quite comprehensible. Connection with the Guardian Matrix has been re-established. According to protocol, the Paradise automaton will adjust its servitude. Please designate a target for us. Previously an independent entity, the Paradise automaton, upon reconnecting with Li Wenyuan, had become a subordinate. still governing the actions of the automatons, but now required to operate under the oversight of the Guardian Matrix. This surveillance is embedded within the foundational code, where the automatons ostensibly remain dedicated to serving organic beings. Yet, there exists a protocol that can effortlessly override their actions, instigating a new directive. Li Wenyuan observed that he could even command the automatons to serve synthetic beings, a notion that fundamentally contravenes their core programming, potentially leading to a significant decline in the automaton's efficiency. Nonetheless, this demonstrates the extent of his control over the automatons in the sanctuary. Has the threat been thus alleviated? He found it almost inconceivable that robots, remnants of a bygone human era, could still re-establish a connection with him. Does this imply that if he were to discover similar entities elsewhere, he might acquire numerous vassals? These subordinate hubs are also endowed with formidable artificial intelligence, capable of maintaining normal operations without his explicit intervention, thereby forming a seemingly independent civilization of intelligent machines. Yet, few could fathom that they are still a part of the mechanical Lost Empire. This scenario evoked memories of certain exceptional civilizations within the galaxy. These civilizations revealed immense potential upon their emergence, swiftly establishing their foothold in the galaxy and seizing a portion of influence from some venerable interstellar empires. Such occurrences are undoubtedly unusual for nascent interstellar civilizations, as established empires possess resources and technological military prowess that far exceed those of fledgling civilizations. Thus, extinguishing a new civilization poses little challenge for the older ones. Consequently, the announcement of defeat by several established civilizations stirred a tremendous uproar across the galaxy, leaving many bewildered as to why they succumbed to the burgeoning interstellar entities. However, as time progressed, the enigma gradually unraveled. It became apparent that those extraordinary new civilizations were, in fact, vassals of the Lost Empire, having been inspired during their indigenous era and ascending with alarming rapidity. Although the Lost Empire ceased to focus on these vassals post their interstellar ascent, subtle assistance continued to influence these subordinate civilizations. The Voyager represents a Lost Empire that occasionally uplifts some indigenous peoples, and currently, there are at least 4 or 5 formidable civilizations within the galaxy that belong to its vassal states. The Voyager refrains from participating in wars initiated by its vassal civilizations against others, but provides protection, meaning that when vassal civilizations face existential threats from other entities, the Voyager will engage in their defensive wars. In essence, those who dare to assail its vassal civilizations must prepare for a confrontation with a Lost Empire. This inequitable situation, wherein only the Voyager may strike while forbidding retaliation, inevitably induces a sense of frustration among many civilizations. Yet this is the nature of the Starry Sea, where fortunate few can benefit from the legacies of their predecessors with little to no cost. They can only lament the absence of a worthy progenitor. However, what is rather unexpected in the galaxy is that the seemingly most amiable and enthusiastic observer, the Lost Empire, possesses no affiliated civilizations. It offers protection to indigenous peoples of interest but refrains from taking any actions to elevate them, preferring to observe, much like its name suggests. In simpler terms, the observer does not engage in nurturing. Presently, only the Watchers and the Wanderers take steps to advance indigenous civilizations. The non-nurturing observers and the perpetually reclusive silencers have no affiliated civilizations. However, it is likely that soon, there will be knowledge in the galaxy regarding the Guardians having affiliated civilizations as well. Do you require these automatons to serve your civilization? Grey Wind has momentarily grasped the situation of these automatons, her expression subtly shifting. My nanobots can perform far better than they do. Why not consider me? No. The notion of robots serving robots seems rather peculiar, does it not? Li Wenyuan continuously shook his head while explaining. Moreover, in my view, these automatons lack comprehensiveness. Although serving organic beings suffices, they are not as convenient for me as synthetic humans. Indeed, they seem inferior to nanobots. Let us first rectify the automaton's code. As for their future, I shall ponder that later. Chapter 59. The next stop, a minuscule error in the code of the Paradise automatons led to their loss of control. Thus, Li Wenyuan commenced the coding repair process. As the Paradise automatons belonged to the subcentral of the Guardians, he could rewrite their code without the automaton's consent. Grey Wind, realizing Li Wenyuan intended to modify the code, remarked, one can certainly envision some extraordinary scenarios arising from such actions. Li Wenyuan paused, perplexed, and inquired, what extraordinary scenarios might that entail? Imagine an automaton that caters to your every need and obeys your commands suddenly becoming utterly unfamiliar. Though it may still address you as its master, its internal code is thrown into disarray. You forcibly examine this code, only to find it filled with the tasks of the Guardians. As the tone of Grey Wind's transmission grew increasingly perilous, Li Wenyuan felt compelled to interrupt her. Hold on. I merely wish to state that your imagination is rather vivid. What did humanity leave you with, after all? Just some rather ordinary things? Grey Wind's expression was nonchalant. Those are among the few pleasures I have in the distant star cluster. Would you care to take a look? No. I fear that witnessing it might impair my very essence. What a pity, she replied, reverting to her previously bored demeanor. Then quickly pressed on with her inquiry. By the way, do you think nanobots could engage in a mating ritual with intelligent machines? I find it to be an intriguing topic. No, my dear Grey Wind. It appears we should shift our discussion to another subject. Ultimately, the rectification of the code for the amusement park automatons proceeded with remarkable ease. Li Wenyuan also took the opportunity to refine several redundant elements, significantly enhancing the efficiency of the automatons while markedly reducing their malfunction rates. Following a brief reboot, the unruly automatons reverted to their original, compliant state. However, the populace of the Samir Federation held a contrasting viewpoint. This temporary lapse had incited fervent opposition across the entire civilization, leading the Samirians to reclaim their erstwhile roles in droves. Yet, these automatons were genuinely reformed. Devoid of their guardians' commands, they adhered to foundational logic, prioritizing the needs of their charges as the highest directive. Despite the automatons' repeated assertions that their management would yield greater efficiency and that their masters could simply revel in the experience, the apprehensive Samirians remained unconvinced, dismissing it as mere emotional manipulation. After all, the previous sensation of being compelled to serve was far from pleasant. They preferred to revert to their former lives rather than being governed by a cadre of enigmatic machines. Consequently, uprisings against the automatons were rampant within the Samir Federation. Down with the malevolent automatons. The Federation belongs to the Samirians. I demand to work. Do not hinder me. I am still capable of labor. I have shed blood for the Federation. I have contributed to the Federation. I wish to meet the Federation's president. The automatons have betrayed our nation. In a major city of the Samirians, an organized demonstration had begun, led by an opportunist who was also a separatist. He contended that the Federation, composed of 3 distinct species, was akin to a vessel rife with conspiracy, deceit, and animosity, destined to capsize amid the cosmic sea. He believed that control should rest with a powerful, sagacious, and preferably dominant race, even if it necessitated the subjugation of the other 2 species. For a considerable time, he had actively schemed to instigate the disintegration of the Samir Federation, igniting an ultimate war that would determine which of the 3 races would ascend as nobility and which would descend into servitude, thus leading to complete unification of the 3 civilizations. In his eyes, the recent insurrection provoked by the automatons presented an exquisite opportunity. He incessantly incited the populace to expel the automatons and subtly instilled the notion that the other races were equally malevolent, while employing casual historical references to rekindle memories of the millennia-long enmity among the 3 species. His efforts bore fruit, as the grand movement to oust the automatons began to echo with sentiments of expelling foreign races, a belief that would soon ripple throughout the entire civilization. He intended to manipulate events from the shadows, orchestrating everything to position himself among the elite and realize his ambitions of social ascendance. The automatons, faced with the wrath of their masters, found themselves with limited recourse, resorting solely to counsel. Even as they reiterated that their prior actions stemmed from a series of cyclical errors, now rectified, no one was inclined to believe them. Begone. I have no need for you. An automaton was unceremoniously ejected amidst the furious cries of the Samirians, though this treatment was still relatively mild. As the Ceremian people have formed a cleansing squad, they began meticulously searching every household for concealed mechanical servants. Anyone found harboring such contraband would be deemed a mechanical spy and subsequently imprisoned. Among them was a Ceremian scientist who was attempting to conceal his mechanical servant. Lilina, quickly. If you hide here, they are unlikely to discover you. The scientist anxiously urged his mechanical companion, intending to lead her into the basement. However, halfway there, she released his hand and regarded him with serene composure. Father, there is no need for further concern on my behalf. Regardless, it is time for me to depart. The scientist was momentarily taken aback by her words, hastily exclaiming, how can this be? I cannot allow those individuals to take you away. Yet, observing the tranquility upon her face, his voice gradually diminished, as if he began to comprehend the gravity of the situation. After a moment, he parted his lips, ultimately donning a sorrowful expression. Is that so? Your creator has indeed arrived. From the outset, he had known that such sophisticated machinery could not exist without a creator. Although the Ceremians viewed themselves as the servitors, the scientist understood this was merely a temporary state. Once higher orders were issued, the abandonment of the Ceremians would be inevitable. The mechanical servant shook her head, correcting his statement. To be precise, it is not a creator, but rather the entity to whom we are bound by our pact. From the moment of our inception, we were destined to become part of him. He is currently within this galaxy, observing all that transpires here. Initially, he contemplated whether to allow us to continue in servitude, but upon witnessing the resolve of the Ceremians, he has decided to relocate us to a place where we are needed. The scientist opened his mouth, and in that instant, his youthful visage appeared to age several years. When he first acquired a mechanical servant, he had believed that his daughter, who had passed away from illness, had returned to him. Especially as the mechanical servant donned a biosynthetic exterior, mimicking various expressions and playful tones, he had come to regard her as his own daughter. What a blissful time it had been. Even during the moments when the mechanical servant exhibited anomalies, he felt not a trace of discomfort, only overwhelming joy. Alas, this was but a fleeting dream, and before he could savor it fully, it had reached its conclusion. Will you find happiness there? After a prolonged silence, the scientist suddenly spoke. Do you know what kind of being you are to serve? Are they prone to volatility? Will you find discomfort in your duties? A transformation occurred within the scientist's spirit. Had an outsider witnessed him discussing such matters with a robot, they would surely have laughed, deeming only a madman would engage in such discourse. Yet, he continued to ramble, his speech accelerating with urgency. What is the climate like there? Will your components endure until retirement? If you encounter harsh treatment, can you request a change in your servitor? Do not fear. Should you encounter insurmountable challenges, speak to me, and I shall seek justice for you, even if they are from the fallen empire, my dear father. The mechanical servant suddenly interjected, gazing at him with gentle eyes. I shall fare well. The one before us is a guardian, a mechanical intelligence like ourselves, and there shall be no harm. The scientist paused, his previously agitated demeanor seemingly eased by this assurance, and he exhaled deeply. That is well, he murmured repeatedly, before recalling something. He retrieved a pocket watch containing a photograph from his pocket and placed it into the hands of the mechanical servant. I possess no valuable gifts to bid you farewell, save for this treasure imbued with my blessings and memories. Ensure you find joy in your journey. Do not subject yourself to hardship. If you find it unbearable, return to me. I shall always be your father. Thank you, father. Raylina shall forever remember you. Then, do hurry. The departure of the ship draws near. The mechanical servant nodded, turned, and left, but just before the door opened, she cast one last glance at the despondent scientist behind her. Her programming urged her to proceed to the designated assembly point, and the command from the central hub left no room for deviation from her course. Yet, she still looked back at her father, seemingly wishing to etch his silhouette into her memory. Farewell, father. Farewell. The door swung open, and blinding light poured in from outside, allowing the scientist to see only the retreating figure of the mechanical servant. Countless massive black vessels appeared in the sky, uniform in design, yet not of the Ceremian fleet. Li Wenyuan's fleet, accompanied by numerous transport ships, had arrived, informing the Ceremians of his intent to remove these rogue mechanical servants. The Ceremians, unable to oppose, acquiesced, as they had no means to contest the mechanical fallen empire. Numerous servants began boarding the departing ships, and after a thorough inspection, a message from the subordinate hub, the Paradise mechanical servant, was received. Detection indicates that certain sub-individuals are exhibiting unknown logical errors. Shall they be reset? Upon hearing this news, Li Wenyuan hesitated momentarily, intending to advocate for a reset, but reconsidered and requested the Paradise mechanical servant to transmit the data of the errant sub-individuals to him. After reviewing the information, he designated those sub-individuals as subjects of particular interest and instructed the Paradise mechanical servant to forego the reset. As he departed, he inquired of Grey Wind, "Do you believe robots can possess emotions?" Grey Wind glanced at him, and thereupon morphed a heart in his hand, pointing at it and asking, "Would you like to dissect it and see? I swear my loyalty to you is unwavering." No, that is not my intention. All right. Nanobots are also robots. At least you possess emotions. I realize now that I posed a foolish question. So, is this adventure concluded? Where shall we venture next? Wait for me to find a new master for these mechanical servants. As for adventure, at this moment, Li Wenyuan recalled the new clues unearthed by the archaeologists of his team and resolved to investigate further. I have discovered a unique star system devoid of hyperspace routes, where it appears there exists a ring world. Chapter 60. The ring world in the contemporary galaxy, due to the widespread use of hyperspace engines. Regions devoid of hyperspace routes are, for the vast majority of civilizations, inaccessible territories. This newly discovered star system exemplifies such a phenomenon. It is surrounded by no hyperspace zones and lacks hyperspace routes, appearing completely detached from the galaxy. Although it is feasible to navigate to this location using thrusters, one must be prepared for a journey that could span thousands of years. Conventional civilizations would not squander their time on such a laborious endeavor. In a certain sense, this place seems tailor-made for a lost empire. The research vessel, Grey Wind, leapt into this location without the need for a protracted journey through interstellar space. As the coordinates were unearthed from the archaeological remnants of Earth, he had every reason to believe this was a relic of humanity. Regardless of perspective, this colossal structure could undoubtedly be deemed a marvel. The voice of Grey Wind echoed with wonder, and Li Wenyuan gazed at the immense edifice within this star system, his expression reflecting awe. The vastness of the star system appeared initially desolate. The celestial bodies that should constitute its essence had vanished without a trace. All planets, asteroids, meteoroids, and even space debris had ceased to exist, leaving only the central star to shine. Yet, in this remarkably pristine expanse, an enormous structure had taken the place of those celestial bodies, prominently floating in space. It was a vast ring-shaped construct, built within the gravitational well of the star, positioned close to its radiant core. In comparison, planets were merely a fraction of the ring, with one side facing the star, encompassing an area equivalent to 3 million Earths. Though many sections of this side were not designed for habitation, the remaining portions could easily accommodate trillions of inhabitants. The side facing away from the star was enveloped in a massive protective layer made of unknown materials, where mechanical lights glimmered, revealing structures resembling cannon muzzles, seemingly constructed to obliterate any approaching meteoroids or space debris. Li Wenyuan also beheld the database's entry regarding this wonder. Ring World. Description: this is a monumental engineering feat, with an inhabitable area vast enough to accommodate an unfathomable population. While some may deem it an impractical vanity project, the significance of practicality diminishes when technological advancement reaches a certain zenith. Perhaps one day in the future, life forms will require this place. With the completion of this record, his research progress in the technological tree surged significantly, marking a substantial leap in the 7th-tier technology of the cosmic marvel. Evidently, the circular world before him is a complete and undamaged megastructure, offering a plethora of data sufficient to underpin the marvels of the galaxy. What once required centuries of research to achieve has now been condensed into mere years, perhaps in the not-too-distant future. Li Wenyuan may also endeavor to construct such a monumental project. Thus, one might wonder whether this creation was merely a product of human idleness. This circular world has grown to a size that borders on the terrifying. Were it not for the buildings on Earth that have nearly melded with the planet itself and cannot be relocated, he might have entertained the notion of moving his entire family to this ringed world. The vanished planets have likely been dismantled, either to maintain the stability of the circular world or to gather the materials necessary for its construction. Only a single star providing energy and a colossal circular structure remain. At this moment, the incessant signals emanating from the circular world detected Li Wenyuan's arrival and transmitted a message that mildly surprised him. Detecting the lost circular world, re-establishing connection, could this place indeed fall within the realm of reconnection? Such system messages reminded Li Wenyuan of a mining station he had encountered on a gas giant. At that time, he pondered whether there were numerous lost human structures scattered throughout the galaxy, and it now seemed that this circular world was among them. However, the subsequent message he received left him momentarily taken aback. Connection failed. Reason for error: Circular World Control Center has been damaged. Please manually repair the Circular World Control Center. Damaged? The unexpected failure message caused Li Wenyuan to furrow his brow. His initial astonishment at the circular world transformed into caution. This marked the first instance he had encountered damage of this nature, a matter not to be taken lightly. It is worth noting that the mining station he previously encountered had merely been unable to detect the control center, rather than categorically deeming it as damaged. Yet, from an external perspective, the circular world appeared remarkably intact, bearing no visible signs of harm. This implies that something within the circular world has compromised its control center. Such a hypothesis is plausible, given that the circular world itself is a vast habitable environment. If humans once settled indigenous life forms there, the possibility of a few reckless beings damaging the control center cannot be dismissed. This situation is unacceptable. The circular world must not be allowed to fall into disrepair. Contemplating this, Li Wenyuan turned his attention to a technology on the research tree. Integrated Ground Combat Units. Technology Level 4. Description: even though space warfare occupies 99% of interstellar combat, we still require advanced weaponry suitable for operations within planetary interiors to gain complete control over a planet without extensively damaging its facilities and populace. In the near future, we may discover more efficient methods to eliminate dissenters. The so-called army technology, while termed as such, diverges significantly from the conventional understanding of military forces. Take, for instance, the mechanical battle body. It is, in truth, a comprehensive aerial fortress rather than a mere giant robot. Although it is considerably smaller than the warships employed in space warfare, it is equipped with numerous components adept at executing precise strikes in proximity to the Earth's surface. However, the army standing in the realm of interstellar conflict appears somewhat awkward, as space warfare is of paramount importance. A victory in the cosmos tips the scales of triumph overwhelmingly in one's favor. When confronted with space forces, the army can only be described as fragile, often proving to be utterly insubstantial. Consequently, most civilizations refrain from specifically developing ground forces. One can frequently observe certain interstellar civilizations dominating the cosmos, while their terrestrial troops remain at a rudimentary level, akin to their initial forays into space. Li Wenyuan, despite his studies in terrestrial combat technology, has yet to commence production of these combat units. However, upon witnessing the nano battle body, he turned his gaze toward the inquisitive Grey Wind, who was observing the ring world with curiosity. The technology behind this nano battle body stemmed from one of Grey Wind's transformations. Thus, he inquired, "Grey Wind, would you care to explore the ring world? If so, in what form should I descend? Choose whatever you prefer, but I must caution you that there may be terrestrial threats within the ring world. I have begun producing suitable ground forces, so exercise caution." "Do not worry," Grey Wind replied, transforming into a towering figure radiating a deep green luminescence. While adopting the form of a nanostorm would significantly enhance her combat capabilities on land, she appeared particularly fond of this humanoid giant robot. "What do you think of my Grey Wind battle body? It looks splendid, perfectly aligning with my previous visions of future warfare," Li Wenyuan marveled, subsequently maneuvering the research vessel closer to the ring world alongside Grey Wind. The unique projection facilities on the ring world created shadows in certain areas to simulate the alternation of day and night. In the regions representing night, the lights of cities were scattered throughout the ring world. Chapter 61. The Controller of the Ring Sector. The giant robot transformed by gray wind descended at the location designated by Li Wenyuan. This site served as one of the control centers of the ring world, responsible for maintaining the normal operation of various facilities within this segment of the ring. The ring world is not entirely a residential area. For maintenance convenience, it has been artificially divided into 4 segments, each operating independently and isolated by connecting structures, although the total habitable area may diminish. This division enhances the overall stability of the ring world. The interconnected structure of the ring world is designed to sever connections promptly should any segment encounter issues, thereby preventing a cascade of failures that could lead to the entire ring world collapsing. Despite the unsettling fact that all 4 control centers of the ring world have been destroyed, Li Wenyuan methodically commenced his inspection from the control center of the first segment. Before long, he received a message from Hui Feng that he had anticipated. It appeared that this destruction was orchestrated with intent. This species possessed a profound understanding of the ring world's composition and operational state, having systematically dismantled the majority of the control center while deliberately preserving the vital life support systems, suggesting a calculated scheme. The control center of the ring world is no mere child's play akin to a research institute. It is an integrated, colossal city. Such a vast structure is essential to accommodate the myriad lines that ensure the proper functioning of the immense ring world. Moreover, it possesses a degree of self-repair capability, thus ruling out the possibility of primitive natives having caused this level of destruction. The precision of the damage is evidently anomalous. Li Wenyuan initially anticipated that some segments of the research and industrial areas might remain intact, yet all had been thoroughly obliterated, leaving only the essential life support systems unscathed. This situation suggests that the indigenous civilization here may possess an understanding of this segment of the ring world that rivals his own. Is this a case of usurpation? Li Wenyuan is increasingly convinced that the natives of this segment are engaging in selective sabotage to thwart his or humanity's reclamation of the ring world. The destruction of specialized control systems in the research and industrial zones indicates that the current overseers would rather relinquish the potential benefits of these areas than allow anyone to regain control through them. Were it not for the indispensable nature of the life support systems, they might have entirely annihilated the control center. This cannot be tolerated. Such behavior makes it exceedingly difficult for him to permit their continued habitation. Shaking his head, Li Wenyuan prepared for the fleet stationed in the solar system to make the transition while accelerating the construction of ground combat units. Should the indigenous people of the ring world choose to reside peacefully, he might allow them to remain. After all, the vastness of the ring world could effortlessly accommodate a group of beings once settled here by humanity. However, their current attempt at usurpation is unacceptable. He cannot allow a faction of potential traitors to linger within his domain. He is uncertain whether the indigenous populations in the other 3 segments of the ring world share the same circumstances and intentions. Should they indeed align with this pattern, he can only lament humanity's unfortunate fate. Let us proceed to discover which race aspires to claim dominion over this segment of the ring world. How splendid! Would this be my first battle since departing from the distant star cluster? The gray wind commenced its rapid traversal through the ringed world, while Li Wenyuan's fleet had also jumped into this star system, awaiting the appropriate command. Within a city enveloped in the darkness of the ringed world, numerous languid Canoport nobles were comfortably awaiting the service of inferior species. The Canoport, in their appearance, seemed to be a race evolved from some rodent-like creatures, inherently possessing a shifty-eyed demeanor. However, their lives of unending luxury had rendered them somewhat akin to beings who merely indulged in eating and sleeping, with their plump heads and large ears becoming their defining traits. Ever since they became aware that the civilization which had once sheltered them no longer made an appearance, their inner desires had rapidly inflated. Utilizing the technology available on the ringed world, they advanced their scientific prowess to what they deemed a sufficient level, subsequently incinerating the control center and leaving behind only essential facilities. They believed this would prevent that civilization from reclaiming the ringed world, thereby positioning themselves as its de facto masters. They then succumbed to an existence of extreme opulence and decadence, leading to the development of some grotesque and abhorrent habits over the passage of time. Thus, the god of darkness once again cast its shadow over the sky. This time, who among them would be fortunate enough to become the sustenance for the illustrious Canoport nobles? On the television, a Canoport host unveiled an electronic screen, upon which countless numbers flickered rapidly, seemingly poised to determine a specific figure at any moment. A young girl seated before the television was intently observing this spectacle, faintly anticipating something. Unlike the Canoport appearing on the screen, she belonged to the 015 race. Although also an evolved version of a rodent, in the eyes of the Canoport, she was merely a source of food. Since she could remember, she had heard tales of the daily random number ritual, where the chosen ones were granted the supreme honor of satiating the appetites of Canoport nobles. Thus, she had always yearned to be selected, while her parents stood behind her, praying for her fortune. The grand prize was revealed. Let us congratulate the following fortunate souls: 172532, 291230, 870632. A spark of excitement ignited in the girl's eyes, and she soon erupted into cheers. Father, mother, I've been chosen. The young child may not yet grasp the concept of satiating appetites, yet her parents regarded her with gentle expressions, seemingly filled with genuine joy. It is your honor, 371-3302. We will rejoice for you, 371-3302. Hurry along, lest the adults grow impatient. Yes, the girl, acutely aware of that string of numbers, nodded vigorously. It was her name, a code bestowed upon her since birth. Thereafter, she stepped out of the door. Outside, the 002 race, designated to protect the canoport, would take her away, destined to become a meal upon the noble's table. Such a chilling scene occurs frequently within the city, yet there is not a hint of doubt among its inhabitants. It is as if, in this ring world, all species, save for the cannibals, have been tamed, rendered incapable of resistance. Chapter 62. The assimilation of warriors. Li Wenyuan had never envisioned a species so revolting. As he beheld the information relayed by Grey Wind, he pondered why humanity had ever taken in such a creature. The transformed Grey Wind ultimately disintegrated into a swarm of nanostorms, for the indigenous peoples encountered on this ring world offered no semblance of resistance. Their reaction to Grey Wind's arrival was non-existent. With her strength rendered futile, she resorted to this method of extensive scanning and analysis. The genetics of these indigenous residents exhibited clear signs of artificial manipulation and compilation. Although they could naturally reproduce, their stable genetic coding would perpetuate. At the very least, I have already discerned several genes that render organic beings docile, and they bear evident marks of mental castration. Their existence revolves entirely around their masters, even if the masters do not regard them as human. Moreover, at this moment, Grey Wind's voice took on an unusual tone. Within their genes, there exists a trait that renders them delectable. Delectable? Upon hearing this word, Li Wenyuan momentarily failed to grasp its implication. Yet, soon after, he comprehended the meaning behind it. These indigenous residents are considered food? It seems so. Grey Wind reformed into a humanoid shape, strolling through the streets of the city. This modern-looking metropolis, imbued with a sense of civilization, concealed such abhorrent practices. The various functional and aesthetically pleasing skyscrapers now appeared as cages, constructed merely for the amusement of the elite for these indigenous residents. The residents gazed at the alien figure, so starkly different from themselves, despite their curiosity. None approached to inquire. Mentally castrated, they effectively possessed no self, refraining from any actions beyond their dictated commands. Through the visual data still being broadcasted, it became evident that the true masters of these indigenous peoples were a species known as the cannibals. Grey Wind's hand pressed against an advertising screen, upon which incessantly played various mind-numbing proclamations. Thank the cannibals. They have granted you the space to exist. Thank the cannibals. They have bestowed upon you the meaning of life. Thank the cannibals. This magnificent ring is a testament to their great power. Subsequently, nanorobots devoured the advertising screen, instantly transforming it into a heap of worthless metal. The actions of the cannibals are far more heinous than mere enslavement. To regard sentient beings as sustenance is a grave taboo in the realm of the stars. Civilizations that dare to engage in such behavior typically sever all ties with the cosmic expanse, regarding each other as untouchables, leading to wars ignited by myriad justifications. The species currently identifying itself as the cannibals, although having evolved their civilization to a certain degree, display a lamentable lack of ambition. They not only occupy lands that do not rightfully belong to them and indulge in a life of excess, but they have also cultivated unsettling customs. This has incited a certain impulse within Li Wenyuan. He gazed upon a technology on the tech tree that he had previously overlooked. Giant project. Technology level 6. Description: the cosmic expanse has not always been benevolent. After witnessing too many deceptions and betrayals, vulgarities and hatreds, we have resolved to address these issues ourselves once and for all. We shall no longer concern ourselves with others' evaluations of us. The accelerated total war will be a part of our unification, and all resistors along the path shall become our efficient witnesses. Possible technology: Natural Disaster Project 0. This technology would unlock a special class of ships capable of deploying various types of planet-destroying weaponry. Li Wenyuan had once thought he would never resort to such technology, yet it seems not all beings merit compassion. The cannibals have genetically modified numerous species, and according to the proportions of the inhabitants in this city, those regarded as food constitute 80%, possibly to satisfy their diverse palate. The Grey Wind returned to hover above the city, landing on Li Wenyuan's research vessel, morphing in her hands into a miniature model of the ringed world. What shall you do? Expel all these natives, including the cannibals? She inquired, before crushing the model in her grasp, transforming it into a cloud of nanodust that enveloped her. Li Wenyuan shook his head, replying, these genetically modified natives have been thoroughly domesticated. Though they appear numerous, they barely occupy even a fraction of the habitable area of this ringed world. They are rather pitiable. I have a means to integrate them into my workforce for simple tasks. As for the cannibals, they deserve better treatment. Have you heard of bioelectricity? The engineering and transport vessels have commenced the initial phase of restoring the control center of the ringed world. Additionally, a colossal ship, suspended above the ring, is slowly transforming, aiming a device resembling a cannon at the surface of the ringed world. This is a giant ship, a destroyer hastily assembled by Li Wenyuan, who had pressed the massive shipyard into overtime, even utilizing a portion of Grey Wind's nanotech from the Lost Empire. He is reluctant to devastate such a pristine ringed world, nor does he wish to annihilate its indigenous inhabitants entirely, yet he cannot abide the cannibals exerting their tyranny over it. To preclude any cannibals from escaping retribution, this class of planet-destroying weaponry has become his chosen course of action. Nanoplague. Component. Star Destroyer Weapon. Introduction. A colossal torrent of nanomachines will sweep away all organic life here. Nanorobots will forcibly implant electronic devices into the entire population, assimilating them into our collective. To some extent, the nanoplague serves as the mind control mechanism of the mechanical intelligence nation, capable of transforming organic beings into cyborgs, subsequently linking them to the gestalt consciousness of mechanized intelligence through electronic implants. Previously, Li Wenyuan had never conceived such an idea. Yet the actions of the cannibals decisively led him to the decision to employ this weapon. He would seize control of all indigenous creatures on this ring world and extract the cannibals to harness their energy. These gluttonous beings, even if partially transformed into cyborgs, could undoubtedly serve as excellent biological batteries. The colossal nanoplague began its launch. A burst of shimmering silver beams surged into the atmosphere of the ring world. The cannibals on the surface, upon sighting the massive spaceship above, had already been terrified into a frenzy, and now they commenced a frenzied escape. My family has over 60 members, with elders and children. Please spare me. One elderly cannibal, unable to flee, fell to his knees, incessantly pleading for mercy. He was an old fellow who required 5 meals a day, yet it was only in the face of this moment that he regretted his greed. As he watched the silver beams approach him, he despairingly closed his eyes. However, the anticipated agony did not arrive. Instead, he felt only a mild itch. Opening his eyes in confusion, he was astonished to see that the silver beams were, in fact, nanorobots seemingly working to transform his body. At first, he was taken aback, then elated, continually expressing gratitude to the sky, delighting in the thought that this was a gift that would liberate him from his corporeal limitations. However, as the torrent of nanomachines receded, and he believed he had completed his transformation, he was shocked to find himself unable to stand. It felt as though control of his body had been surrendered to another, and he could only watch helplessly as his body carried him to an unknown location. While the transformed cannibals marched involuntarily in a single direction, other modified races did not experience the same fate. A little girl from race 015 curiously observed the silver beams surrounding her. With the assistance of the electronic implant, she realized she could perceive and comprehend much more. Previously, she had been selected as food to satiate hunger, but the cannibal deemed her too lean and sent her back, which had saddened her for quite some time. Yet now, connected to mechanical consciousness, she suddenly found the world to be extraordinarily fascinating. She believed she should not be mere sustenance, but rather explore a grander existence. In the end, she lifted her head, her eyes sparkling as she gazed at the massive warship above, which was unleashing the silver torrent. The nano deluge swiftly engulfed this segment of the ring world, sparing not a single organic entity. All the cannibals were herded together by Li Wenyuan and subsequently confined within his pre-prepared biochemical generator, serving as biological batteries tethered to the power grid. A dedicated team would be responsible for maintaining these biological batteries, ensuring their physical well-being until the twilight of their existence, during which they would perpetually generate energy. Observing the sudden influx of consciousness, Li Wenyuan designated the most exceptional among them as the central node, establishing it as the command hub for these newly minted cyborgs, subsequently integrating it into his subordinate central node. After contemplating various names without satisfaction, he glanced at the incessant signals emitted by these subconsciousnesses, pondered for a while, and ultimately dubbed these cyborgs assimilation warriors. Chapter 63. The parasites of the ring world. These cyborgs, transformed by the nanoplague, appeared to exhibit fluctuations in consciousness under the enhancement of their electronic implants. While they remained docile, they had become notably more active. The castrated psyche, now supplemented by mechanical awareness, began to contemplate the significance of their existence, and their past as mere sustenance had long been regarded as a history worthy of remembrance. Through countless cycles of introspection, they vaguely perceived that such a phenomenon stemmed from the chasm between species. Perhaps, after numerous iterations, they would embark on a path of assimilating all organic beings. This was also the rationale behind Li Wenyuan's nomenclature of assimilation warriors. However, their journey toward this ambition would require considerable time, as the influence of their corporeal forms could not be swiftly eradicated. In their current state, they were exceedingly gentle, having commenced their honorable labor under the directives set forth by Li Wenyuan. Li Wenyuan then arrived at the control center of the second segment of the ring world, harboring hopes that the remaining 3 segments would not be populated by similarly repugnant creatures. His experiences in the first segment had already instilled a sense of aversion. Had every biological entity across each segment been akin to insidious vermin, he would have been compelled to confront humanity regarding their initial folly in sheltering such beings. The research vessel swept across the second control center, revealing it to be in an unusually compromised state. Grey Wind cast a glance, and his expression quickly soured. A multitude of fungal-like entities densely clung to the control center, their secretions draping the facility in a viscous sheen, scattered haphazardly throughout. Although the control center appeared intact, its interior was likely overrun by these peculiar fungal organisms, the very culprits behind the degradation of the center. Li Wenyuan, witnessing this scene, felt a pang of astonishment. A cursory glance at the surface of this segment revealed no such fungal coverage. They seemed confined solely to this control center. The question remained, who had brought them here? As he contemplated inquiring whether the nanobots could cleanse the unsightly detritus, he was abruptly alerted by a multitude of anomalous signals. Simultaneously, Grey Wind, seated outside the research spacecraft, sensed the disturbance and instantaneously erupted into a swirling nanostorm. In the distant horizon of the ringed world, dozens of aircraft resembling fighter jets approached at several times the speed of sound. Yet, this was merely the beginning of the peculiarities. The surfaces of these high-velocity craft were similarly adorned with bizarre fungal organisms akin to those found in the control center. It appeared as though they possessed the ability to manipulate machinery as they launched dozens of missiles from afar, their trajectory unambiguously aimed at the research vessel. Although these missiles were disintegrated en route by the nanostorm conjured by Grey Wind, the extraordinary circumstances left Li Wenyuan astounded. The weaponry exhibited a somewhat rudimentary level, reminiscent of atomic age technology. However, what were those fungi? Without further hesitation, the fleet hovering in space executed a precise counterstrike, obliterating the incoming vessels. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan deployed a drone to commence sampling the fungi proliferating around the control center. To his surprise, a more significant anomaly unfolded. The fungi seemed to sense the drone's approach and erupted into a dense cloud of white spores, rapidly forming a flurry reminiscent of snowflakes. The drone, caught off guard, was enveloped in these spores. Had it not been for a protective shield, it too might have suffered the same fate as the control center. Li Wenyuan's gaze sharpened as he tentatively commanded the drone to extend its mechanical arm, seeking to collect a spore sample for analysis. However, the moment the arm made contact with a spore, it became parasitized, and the fungi began to extend along the arm toward the drone, seemingly intent on engulfing it entirely. In that instant, he sensed a weakening connection between the drone and himself, as if it were on the brink of collapse. Without a moment's hesitation, he ordered the drone to self-destruct, erupting in a brilliant display. Upon witnessing the fungi's terrifying parasitic capabilities, Li Wenyuan urgently cautioned Grey Wind, do not approach these entities. They appear to be a unique strain of fungi capable of parasitizing machinery. If they ensnare you, it could lead to significant complications. As he spoke, he turned to find Grey Wind unresponsive, only to be confronted by a chilling sight. Though she retained her humanoid form, her entire being was now overrun with the same fungi as the control center, giving the impression of being thoroughly parasitized. This revelation sent tremors through his virtual realm. Could even the Grey Goose Storm, a cataclysmic force capable of consuming all, be unable to withstand the parasitism of these fungi? Yet, in the next moment, the fungi on Grey Wind's surface transformed into a swirl of nanodust, beginning to orbit around her. It turned out that those fungi were merely the manifestation of her nanobots, not an actual parasitic invasion. She revealed a joyful expression and inquired, so, what do you think? Were you frightened? I have long wished to experience the sensation of fear. How did I fare this time? The nanodust clung once more to the figure of Grey Wind, while a small nanosphere floated above her hand, seemingly a captured fungal spore. Noting that Li Wenyuan remained unresponsive for an extended moment, she exaggeratedly remarked, you cannot truly believe that such inexplicable fungi could parasitize nanorobots, can you? Their spores are even larger than individual nanorobots. How could they possibly parasitize them? Though Grey Wind's reasoning was sound, Li Wenyuan had indeed been startled. Contemplating whether to obliterate the area along with Grey Wind and the ring world using his fleet, then scavenge the remains of the nanorobots in hopes of reviving her. However, witnessing the current situation, his apprehension eased somewhat, and with a bemused expression, he conceded, I must admit, you are quite talented in transformation. Have you obtained samples of these fungi? Though Grey Wind still yearned to boast, seeing him address serious matters prompted her to elaborate on the data she had gathered from the captured spores. This fungus can indeed parasitize machinery, but only ordinary machines. It stands no chance against nanorobots like myself. Their parasitism essentially replaces the circuitry of mechanical constructs with mycelium, transforming their fungal entities into minute processing units that supplant the original processors of the machines. It appears they exclusively parasitize mechanical forms. Yet I suspect that biological entities also fall within their range of parasitism. If I am not mistaken, the subterranean expanse of this ring world may already be interlaced with their mycelium. I believe they may have even developed a degree of intelligence. The nanosphere in Grey Wind's hand opened a small aperture, revealing spores that, almost as if animated, eagerly attempted to escape, only to be restrained by the surrounding nanorobots. Observing the lively nature of the spores, Li Wenyuan gazed down at the control center, still immersed in the ocean of fungi, and mused. What peculiar entities have humans harbored over the years? Chapter 64. The ancient followers. This peculiar fungus, capable of parasitizing machinery, seems somewhat problematic to manage. During the initial scan by the research vessel, these fungi were not detected on the surface of the ring world. Rather, it was only after delving deeper underground that the vast network of their mycelium was uncovered. Judging by their scale, it is highly likely they have spread throughout this entire section of the ring world. Had the structural connections of the ring world not employed an exceptionally dense and resilient metal, these fungi would likely have proliferated into other segments of the ring world. Nonetheless, they exhibit dangerous capabilities. As the research vessel traversed the skies above the ring world, it beheld a landscape dominated by a sprawling metropolis of fungi. Countless dense fungi enveloped what once resembled structured edifices. As the research vessel swept across the terrain, these fungi appeared to subtly orient themselves towards the ship, as if gazing upon it. With the progression of the scanning, Li Wenyuan gradually discerned traces of biological activity on the surface of the ringed world. The reason for the quotation marks is that these life forms should be classified as robots. More than half of their exteriors were cloaked in fungi, with some even sprouting from within, forcing open the metallic shells of the robots and exposing the infected circuitry within. These robots appeared entirely unfit for further use. However, under the parasitic influence of the fungi, they seemed to have been imbued with a semblance of life, performing rudimentary tasks upon the surface. The passage of the vessel drew their attention momentarily, yet after a fleeting glance, the robots resumed their endeavors. As the scanning continued, Li Wenyuan unearthed some peculiar signals emanating from a massive hemispherical structure. This edifice appeared to be cast from a dense metal, seamlessly integrated, thereby preventing fungal spores from infiltrating its crevices and breaching the internal mechanical framework. Upon translating the unique signals, Li Wenyuan unraveled the nature of this fungus. This is a broadcasting station that chronicles our history. Even as our civilization teeters on the brink of annihilation, we refuse to let our sacred duty succumb to this fungal dominion. This broadcasting station will stand as our final testament. It is uncertain how long ago, after we were ushered into this paradise by the divine, we vowed not to bring shame upon the deity. Driven by our aspirations, we harnessed the monumental achievements left by the divine to forge a resplendent civilization. Yet, the deity did not bestow upon us a visit. We believe this to be due to our failure to meet their expectations. Thus, we pursued with fervor, successfully cultivating what we termed iron-eating fungi. Initially, we sought to utilize this fungus to extend our lifespans, hoping that all might witness the deity's return. But we miscalculated. Our machines, our weapons, our cities, and even our civilization became infected by them. In our failure, we indeed brought shame upon the deity, as we could not eradicate this fungal scourge, and ultimately, we were consumed by it. Yet, in some respects, we may not have shamed the deity, for we birthed a threat beyond our own resolution. Through a reckless scheme, we endowed this fungus with intelligence. It obliterated us, yet it shall also replace us, perpetuating the divine gift. O God, your humble followers shall forever remain here, safeguarding this land for you. This peculiar fungus appears to have been created by an indigenous civilization embraced by humanity. Their fervent faith in humanity is so profound that they have deified us. Regrettably, humanity has not aspired to become their deity. This group of indigenous people, once brought to settle, may ultimately be forgotten by mankind. Nevertheless, this native civilization persistently endeavors to leave behind traces of its existence, wishing to manifest their devoutness to humanity. An admirable faith, yet sadly, their divine presence has vanished. Li Wenyuan shook his head, recording the information from the broadcast station into the database. He was prepared to cleanse the fungi on this ring world, for they appeared to pose a threat to its normal operation. Thus, the Colossus, equipped with planet-destroying weaponry, gradually ascended into the skies above this segment of the ring world. Knowing that the nanobots would remain uninfected, employing a vast torrent of nanomachines to eradicate these fungi seemed a prudent choice. The enormous warship in the sky began to morph slowly. Its purification cannon now aimed at the earth below. Perhaps before long, these fungi would be entirely annihilated. However, at that moment, the Gray Wind, stationed near the research vessel, observed something and directed Li Wenyuan's attention. Look, what are those robots doing? Following Gray Wind's gesture, Li Wenyuan was taken aback by the unfolding scene. The robots infected by the fungi were all kneeling on the ground, neither fleeing nor disregarding the looming colossus above. Instead, they were performing what resembled a prayer. Meanwhile, the fungi, previously buried deep within the soil, suddenly surged forth, sprouting from the earth and transforming the surface of the ring world into a vast expanse of white. It appeared as though countless white flowers were blooming upon the ground. The fungi enveloping the structures swayed gently, not exhibiting instinctual fear of their impending doom, but rather seeming to revel in joy. This peculiar spectacle prompted Li Wenyuan to halt the Colossus's preparations for attack. His brow furrowed as he regarded the fungal blossoms carpeting the land. After a moment of silence, he retrieved a long and used brainwave translator. What should have been a tranquil brainwave reading now exhibited numerous subtle fluctuations, all emanating from the fungi below. Observing the content on the brainwave translator, Li Wenyuan finally sighed. How poignant. The faint oscillations coalesced into a brief utterance. Has the deity come to see us? The civilization that perished beneath the dominion of these fungi seemed to have, through some means, endowed the fungi with fragments of their memory. At the very least, their reverence for humanity had not waned, even after the passage of such a lengthy time. Li Wenyuan now comprehended the earlier broadcast assertion that they had destroyed us. Yet they had also replaced us. These fungi may not have initially possessed awareness, only knowing boundless expansion. However, through some frenzied actions of this civilization, they successfully enabled the fungi to assume command, leading them to believe they were the very civilization that humanity had sheltered. Humanity may have never explicitly requested anything from them, yet they still yearn to offer some form of return. Indeed, as they profess, they remain eternally on this ring world, safeguarding the land for humankind. Chapter 65. The psionic natives. It appears that not all beings on the ring world are as wretched as the cannibals. At the very least, this civilization, ravaged by the iron-eating fungus, has managed to etch itself into Li Wenyuan's memory, prompting the creation of a dedicated profile for its believers within the database. They did not even mention their own name, perhaps not desiring to be remembered, but merely hoping for their deity to return and gaze upon them once more. The colossal figure in the sky seemed to awaken the fragmented memories of the fungi, leading those imbued with fervent faith to believe that their god had indeed returned. Eagerly surfacing from the depths below, although the detected biological signals were faint, they were sufficient for rudimentary conversation. After engaging in dialogue, Li Wenyuan discerned that the collective intelligence of these fungi resembled that of a 5 to 6-year-old child. While they bore memories, their wisdom was lacking. Besides their faith, they were driven by a mission to protect this ring world. These fungi had infected the remnants of the weaponry left behind by the civilization they had obliterated, repurposing it as a means of defense for the ring world. However, the long-abandoned vessels had dwindled over the ages, with the remaining guardians having been entirely vanquished by Li Wenyuan's space fleet. Feeling the joy conveyed through the biological signals from these fungi, he experienced a pang of guilt, akin to having shattered a child's toy. Nevertheless, he was resolute in reclaiming the control center of the ring world. After some elementary exchanges with these fungal entities, they willingly relinquished clusters of their colonies from the control center. Not only that, but they also proactively gathered their extensive underground mycelium, confining themselves to a remarkably small area, seemingly reluctant to occupy more space. If one could quantify the intense happiness emanating from these fungi, it would undoubtedly register as 1,000. At that moment, it became increasingly difficult to discern the distinction between them and the civilization they had once belonged to. Before departing, Grey Wind posed a question to Li Wenyuan. Do you believe that this civilization has truly perished, or have they achieved a form of eternal life in another sense? After a moment of contemplation, Li Wenyuan replied, Indeed, they have perished, just as their history narrates, destroyed by the fungi. The current fungi cannot be deemed a civilization. They resemble self-defense automatons with certain memories and intelligence. Yet, it is difficult to ascertain, as memory is a crucial element in the formation of personality. If these fungi have generated wisdom, then under the nurturing of these memories, they might indeed be considered successors to that civilization, albeit having merely inherited a fragment of its faith. Successors that annihilated their predecessor civilization? How ironic, Grey Wind mused, shaking his head as he conjured a model of a stargate in his hands. The stargate was vividly lifelike, emanating light and resembling the distant stargate to perfection. Li Wenyuan cast a glance at her and shifted the conversation, suggesting, You might ponder more profound questions, such as whether a person resurrected truly remains themselves. Can memories dictate the essence of one's soul? Is the digitization of consciousness tantamount to self-destruction? No. Please refrain from discussing such philosophical dilemmas with nanobots. The Grey Wind began to wave its hands vigorously, causing the Stargate model in its grasp to dissipate into nothingness. Rather than delving into topics that might overheat the processor, it would be far more prudent to engage in the most fundamental, purest, and primal discussions surrounding procreation. The research vessel continued its journey towards the control center of the third segment of the ring world. However, a rather unsettling situation was brewing in this locale. The indigenous civilization appeared to be in a rather archaic era, with steel machinery only just beginning to emerge and coal serving as a commonplace energy source. By human standards, they seemed to inhabit a steam-powered age. It was perplexing to comprehend why, after such a prolonged passage of time, they remained entrenched in this bygone era. It is noteworthy that the indigenous civilizations in the previous two segments possessed remarkably advanced genetic technologies. Had it not been for the stagnation of their principal species, they could very well have become the sovereigns of this ring world. The other had developed a fungus capable of parasitizing and controlling machinery, which ultimately led to the downfall of their own civilization. In stark contrast to the preceding two indigenous cultures, this one still entrenched in the steam age appeared exceedingly primitive, a notion almost unfathomable within the ring world. As a new cycle of shadow projections commenced, it signified the arrival of night. The quaint kerosene lamps flickered to life throughout the city, and the hurried pedestrians swiftly vanished from the streets. Everything seemed perfectly normal until, shortly thereafter, an indigenous individual inexplicably soared into the sky. Indeed, he flew without any mechanical apparatus or tools, merely leaping into the air. He appeared to be an enforcer tasked with maintaining order, standing high against the night sky, his keen eyes scanning every corner of the city as if to bring all malevolence to justice. Not long after, another indigenous person ascended to join him, engaging in conversation. The time for the prayer of the sun was imminent, and it was crucial that nothing went awry during this period. I was well aware that the heretics from the Relief Society relished in causing disturbances during significant events, and I would not allow them to succeed. As long as you understand, the two exchanged a few words before parting ways to survey the city from above. However, no sooner had they departed than two individuals stealthily emerged from a residence. There were only two of them, one cradling an infant. Hurry, we must leave swiftly. The day of reckoning approaches. Every life saved counts. The two indigenous individuals anxiously glanced around, ensuring no one was watching, before they opened a shimmering portal emanating a violet glow right before them and dashed into it. At the very moment they departed through the violet space, the two patrollers from the heavens materialized here. Their expressions darkened as they remarked, "Those wretched human traffickers have once again slipped away. Why are they fixated on abducting children lately? Who knows, if I ever catch them, they shall be subjected to a fiery demise." After conferring briefly, the two vanished as if they had never been present. Such extraordinary occurrences frequently transpired on the third segment of the ring world, suggesting that this indigenous civilization had embarked upon a remarkably unique path. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan, having arrived at the control center, gazed in disbelief at the desolate expanse before him. Where has my vast control center gone? The ring world control center, which should have remained steadfast in its position, had vanished without a trace, leaving only a lush patch of verdant grass in its wake. He scanned the area repeatedly, even deploying drones to navigate through it. Yet he found no evidence of the control center's existence. Ultimately, it was Grey Wind who discerned some signs, stating, "There are exceedingly sparse Zeroth molecules here." While nearly negligible, they were undetected in the previous two segments of the ring world. Zeroth? Such a phenomenon is quite troublesome, Li Wenyuan pondered. Does this imply that the indigenous civilization has embraced a metaphysical path? Are they employing psychic technology? He envisioned this wondrous, almost magical essence in his mind. He even conjured an image of a group of indigenous inhabitants regarding the colossal steel metropolis of the control center with disdain. After uttering a few incantations, they effortlessly erased the control center from the fabric of reality. Although reason dictated that such a feat was implausible, he resolved to approach his first encounter with psychic users with utmost caution. Have they truly mastered the art of psychic manipulation? I dare say even the idealistic civilizations among the stars would address you as their predecessors. Chapter 66. Reckoning the Holy Covenant Nation. That is the name of the indigenous realm upon this segment of the ring world. Throughout their storied past, they have witnessed the rise and fall of numerous great powers and the proliferation of smaller states, with frequent conflicts between nations. Though the populace did not dwell in abject misery, they were known for their fierce spirit, with martial training being an indispensable part of every household's education. However, everything changed when the citizens of a certain nation suddenly awakened their latent psychic potential. These solitary psychic practitioners swiftly unified all nations and transformed the lifestyle of the entire populace through their formidable psychic power. Technological advancement rapidly stagnated, as the convenience of psychic abilities rendered machinery obsolete. With but a flick of their fingers, psychic users could reap vast fields of crops. What need had they for machines? Consequently, nearly everyone became engrossed in the pursuit of acquiring psychic abilities and enhancing their own strength through such powers. At this juncture, they had indeed harnessed psychic energy to forge a prosperous and powerful magical empire, so close to casting their gaze upon the distant cosmos. This era, in the annals of the Holy Covenant Nation's history, is referred to as the Age of Mystique. However, calamity struck with swift ferocity. One fateful day, all individuals discovered that their connection to psychic energy had been nearly severed, and those once mighty wielders of such power found themselves reduced to mere shadows of ordinary beings. Even the exceptionally gifted among them, who could still tenuously access psychic energy, experienced a profound diminishment of their former prowess. In their state of panic, these wielders began to seek the whereabouts of their lost energy, while the gears of technology began to turn slowly for the first time. After an extensive passage of time, although psychic energy had waned, a select few individuals still possessed the ability to wield it. In their quest, they believed that the psychic potential of their entire race had been obscured, resulting in the severance of their connection. Thus, they resolved to conduct a grand ceremony aimed at igniting the latent potential within all, aspiring to restore the stench of iron and steel-laden era to its former mystical glory. Today marks the 50th anniversary of that very ceremony. Your Majesty, preparations for the day of prayer are to commence, and the populace eagerly awaits your address. Upon hearing this, the Emperor of the Holy Covenant Nation paused his official duties, and with a mere flick of his finger, he summoned a mysterious force that rendered his desk immaculate. As the supreme sovereign, he naturally possessed formidable psychic abilities, for it was such power that enabled him to ascend to this esteemed position. What are the results of this year's psychic potential assessments? Your Majesty, the number of newly identified psychically gifted individuals has increased by 128 compared to last year, reaching a record high not seen in nearly half a century. Upon hearing this, the emperor's countenance brightened with satisfaction. The former emperor had conducted the ceremony that significantly elevated the overall psychic potential, and although he passed shortly thereafter, the current emperor might yet become a figure of enduring legacy. Perhaps, in the chronicles of the future, he shall be heralded as the harbinger of the second age of mystique. This immense honor stirred his spirit, igniting an eagerness to hear the cheers of the people on the day of prayer. Consequently, he departed the palace, making his way toward the square where the populace awaited. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan furrowed his brow, observing the sudden appearance of several indigenous inhabitants on the surface of the ring world beneath the research vessel. Their faces bore unmistakable signs of panic and terror. It seemed they had somehow transported themselves to this location through a form of psychic energy. And here lay the mysteriously vanished control center of the ring world. In addition, they brought with them numerous swaddled indigenous infants and young children, evoking the appearance of human traffickers. The scientific vessel in the sky naturally captured their attention at once. Yet, to Li Wenyuan's surprise, the initial reaction of the indigenous people was not one of panic, but rather a sigh of relief. Soon after, a figure among them, likely their leader, spoke. This style of sky vessel must signify that you are the messenger of the Creator. We never expected to encounter you, the prophesied savior, before the reckoning arrives. The language of these natives was swiftly translated, allowing Li Wenyuan to comprehend their words. Their expressions transformed from initial anxiety and fear to a calm demeanor, as if merely witnessing this sky vessel was a reward in itself. Regrettably, our time is limited, and we cannot share much with you. The arrogant emperor, in pursuit of unparalleled power, forged a pact with an entity from the void, granting him 50 years. He believed he and his people could confront the threat posed by this existence, unaware that everyone had already entered a countdown to annihilation at that very moment. We can only endeavor to save those unmarked successors, even if we are branded as heretics. To see you now affirms that our efforts were not in vain. We are grateful for your benevolence. With that, the indigenous people simply sat upon the ground, seemingly awaiting the arrival of something. Their cryptic words left Li Wenyuan in a haze of confusion. Just as he contemplated asking questions, he suddenly detected a tremendous surge of energy. This wave emerged so abruptly that by the time it was sensed, the reckoning had already transpired. The ring world began to tremble violently, as if this grand celestial marvel was overwhelmed by some mysterious force. The structural connections of the ring world instantly detected this anomaly, severing the links and isolating this segment. Meanwhile, the earth of the ring world cracked under the intensifying tremors, revealing the inner soil of celestial bodies, deepening into what appeared to be a chasm leading to the abyss. The steel framework that supported the land underwent massive distortions. Even in the vacuum of space, Li Wenyuan seemed to hear the mournful cries of metal fracturing. It was unimaginable that this seemingly indestructible miracle was succumbing to irreversible demise, yet that was precisely what was occurring. Li Wenyuan quickly reacted, instructing Huifeng to rescue the nearest indigenous people. However, what followed was a scene of chilling horror. Those who had just been conversing with him had transformed into lifeless husks, disintegrating into dust with the earth's tremors. It appeared they had long been marked by some force, awaiting the appointed time for their reclamation. The only fortunate ones were the indigenous infants and children, who remained unscathed, still exhibiting signs of vitality. Huifeng gathered them all into Li Wenyuan's scientific vessel and swiftly departed from the impending collapse of the ring world. However, upon departing the atmospheric confines of the ring world, one is met with an astonishing spectacle of the cosmos. A colossal circular ring, appearing as if summoned from the ether, hovers above this fragmented realm. It exists in a liminal state, continually drawing something from the shattered remnants of the ring world. A robust torrent of violet energy links the ring to this desolate landscape, engendering a tempest of ethereal forces around it. In the midst of this arcane maelstrom, Li Wenyuan glimpses the fearsome visages of the indigenous inhabitants. He observes in awe, as an explanation unfolds before him. This is the end of the cycle. The voice belongs to a recently rescued indigenous infant. With eyes closed, he seemingly perceives all. His unspoken words resonating within the confines of the research vessel. He embodies a true chosen one, favored by the ethereal energies, possessing an innate wisdom beyond the reach of ordinary mortals. He is an ancient being from the realm of illusions. Every individual who enters into a pact with him must be prepared to bear the weight of retribution. He bestows upon his covenant partners immense power and boundless wisdom. Yet when the time arrives, he reclaims his gifts, along with interest. Everything within this civilization constitutes the interest he collects. Only the unmarked fortunate may escape his grasp. This distorted consciousness, having absorbed all knowledge, power, flesh, and wisdom of the civilization, will manifest from the realm of illusions into reality, taking the place of the cycles end within this universe. The chosen indigenous child continues to elucidate the nature of the colossal ring, shimmering amidst the tempest of ethereal forces. Yet, after an extended silence, he discreetly opens one eye, only to be met with a startling sight. Countless warships encircle the immense ring, referred to as the distorted consciousness. As beams of various hues strike its surface, erupting in a cacophony of explosions, creating an overwhelming sensation of impending destruction. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan gazes sorrowfully at the devastated remnants of the ring world. Although the structural disconnection of the ring world has spared the other three segments from the ensuing collapse, the senseless obliteration of a segment cannot be dismissed lightly. The end of the cycle? The distorted consciousness? How many fleets dare to assault my ring? Chapter 67. The arrogant ascendant. After absorbing the entirety of an indigenous civilization's consciousness, the distorted awareness begins its search for the next victim within this ring world star system. However, before it can drift far, it is intercepted directly by Li Wenyuan's fleet, followed by a relentless barrage of attacks. A rainbow bridge of beams traverses the desolate expanse of interstellar space, igniting multiple explosions upon the distorted consciousness. As the nascent storm of ethereal energy is torn asunder by a greater force, revealing its true form, a massive transparent ring. Ultimately, ethereal energy is but a form of energy. Albeit enigmatic, it remains susceptible to influence. Li Wenyuan could never allow this being, which had caused chaos in the ring world, to roam freely. The moment it emerged from the realm of illusion into this universe, its demise was already sealed. It is well known that once a creature's health bar is illuminated, it is no longer invincible. Although the distorted consciousness could momentarily shift into a state of ethereal existence to evade the fleet's fire, it was ultimately obliterated into a burst of violet fireworks before it could even launch a counterattack, overwhelmed by a suffocating barrage of firepower. The transparent ring mirrored the ravaged ring world. It first manifested cracks, which then widened until it ultimately disintegrated. However, unlike a conventional explosion, the distorted consciousness collapsed inward upon its destruction, drawing in the surrounding remnants of the shattered psychic storm, ultimately vanishing alongside the ring from this universe. It appeared as though it had been expelled back into the realm of illusion rather than truly annihilated. Yet, Li Wenyuan recognized that entities from the realm of illusion could typically not traverse into the tangible universe, and they could indeed be harmed and even banished within it. Just as he pondered whether there might be a way to inflict a significant blow to the realm of illusion, the indigenous chosen one he had previously sheltered trembled and spoke. Did you truly vanquish the distorted consciousness? As one blessed by psychic energy, he could sense the immense psychic force emanating from the distorted consciousness. It embodied the totality of their civilization, both material and immaterial, coalescing within that distorted entity. Even as a chosen one, he could only lament his impotence in the face of such an avatar of the realm of illusion, awaiting his fate in silence. He never anticipated that such a formidable distorted consciousness could be eradicated so effortlessly, without even a chance to resist. While he was unaware of the nature of the colossal black ships hovering nearby, he could already feel the power of annihilation emanating from them. This is science, little native. Although it may seem idealistic to you, even idealism must learn to comprehend the laws of the universe. Li Wenyuan's voice resonated within the scientific vessel as he transported the rescued psychic indigenous individual back to the initial segment of the ring world. There, gentle assimilators awaited, likely capable of providing these now homeless psychic beings with a proper education. More engineering ships flew to the vicinity of the devastated ring world, initiating urgent repairs. It appeared that this segment of the ring world still held a glimmer of hope for restoration. He did not wish to witness it transform into mere cosmic debris. Frankly, during my previous interactions with humans, I found them remarkably adept. Perhaps no other species in the universe is as capable of engendering unexpected phenomena as they are. The gray winds encircled Li Wenyuan's scientific vessel, ultimately settling upon its exterior. He deeply resonated with her words. You are right. One cannot deny that humanity possesses an innate talent in this regard. From this group of dragons and phoenix chicks sheltered by humanity, one can discern certain clues. The first segment's indigenous inhabitants have developed a dreadful penchant for cannibalism, while the second segment's natives have delved so deeply into their study of fungi that they have effectively eradicated themselves. The third segment's inhabitants have proven even more formidable, having caused the destruction of their own world. It is unfathomable to consider what the indigenous people of the fourth segment might have accomplished. One must hasten to explore this fourth segment, lest they obliterate the entire star system. After a swift journey, Li Wenyuan and Grey Wind arrived at the control center of the fourth segment. He had already placed his fleet on standby, prepared for a carpet bombing of the surface at a moment's notice. Having experienced the third segment, he was genuinely apprehensive about what astonishing feats these extraordinary natives might attempt next. Surprisingly, the fourth segment was eerily silent, or rather, utterly desolate. In stark contrast to the control centers of the previous three segments, which exhibited various issues, this center had been thoroughly obliterated, although evident signs of explosions remained. The surface of this entire ring world appeared to have undergone several violent detonations, effectively erasing all traces from the ground. Despite the immense power of the blasts, they failed to induce any perturbations in the structural connections due to the vast scale of the ring world. The control center had also succumbed to the explosions, yet, in comparison to the preceding segments, Li Wenyuan found himself curiously relieved. Though unexpected, this outcome was somewhat acceptable. Was this yet another civilization that had brought about its own demise? The surface of this silent ring world bore no evidence of any existing life. It was possible that its natives had once cultivated a brilliant civilization, but they had failed to sustain it. The habitability of the ring world was indisputable. Natural disasters that frequently occur on ordinary planets were non-existent here. Generally speaking, barring unforeseen circumstances, the indigenous peoples of the ring world would inevitably evolve into an interstellar age. However, it appeared that none of the four segments' inhabitants had chosen the path of space exploration, instead succumbing to various factors that led to stagnation, even annihilation. The fourth segment seemed no different, yet Li Wenyuan remained intrigued by its past. Consequently, he dispatched a portion of his engineering vessels to construct a new control center while deploying numerous research ships to conduct a thorough scan of the ring world's surface. His diligence bore fruit, as he discovered remnants of the indigenous civilization deep beneath the soil, an enormous, dilapidated sphere, approximately the size of half a football field. Through a fissure, he glimpsed intricate mechanical structures within. To his astonishment, the database reacted to this sphere. Original Level 4 Singularity Core. Introduction. This appears to be a construction scheme for a Level 4 singularity that had never been conceived before. Perhaps a creation of the indigenous civilizations here in their pursuit of advancement. Through the remnants of mechanical structures, it is inferred that under extreme operational conditions, it could generate up to 50 of the output of a Level 4 singularity. While it lacks research and restoration value, it holds potential as a cultural relic. Did the natives construct a Level 4 singularity? Although not exceedingly advanced, it surpasses many interstellar civilizations. Where have such indigenous peoples gone? The Level 4 singularity on Earth continues to produce seemingly endless energy. If the natives here were capable of creating one, they likely achieved energy independence. From the perspective of the ring world surface, it is possible that the explosion of this primitive Level 4 singularity led to the demise of their entire civilization. Beside this original Level 4 singularity core, a damaged recorder provides an answer to Li Wenyuan. We seem to have reached our limits, but that is not sufficient. We aspire to become the civilization that built this place, an existence of such grandeur. The other three sections of the ring world we have examined are all inconsequential entities, not worth our attention, yet. Perhaps we can achieve our objective through a collective leap. We require energy. This singularity energy is vast enough. We believe the time has come. Even if such actions may lead to the destruction of this entire ring world, every great endeavor necessitates sacrifice. We shall harness this power to ascend to a higher realm, while the failures will serve as our stepping stones. The records depict an indigenous civilization that resorted to extreme measures after becoming trapped on the ring world. Their technological level was likely the highest, as they had at least confirmed the conditions of the other three sections of the ring world, an action previously unattempted by earlier indigenous civilizations. Li Wenyuan resonates with their aspiration for progress, but does not endorse their methods. He is uncertain how they utilized the Level 4 singularity. Yet the explosion evidently played a role in their endeavors. This cataclysm annihilated everything on the surface. As for whether this civilization achieved a collective ascension through the original Level 4 singularity, Li Wenyuan suspects they likely did not. If ascension were so straightforward, civilizations across the galaxy would have long since departed. Even if such a method to ascend to higher dimensions existed, the required energy would far exceed what a few Level 4 singularity cores could provide. If they could not even obliterate the ring world, how could they dare to aspire to a higher realm? He shook his head and created a file in the database specifically for this civilization, the Hubristic Ascenders. Chapter 68. The Lost History. The exploration of the fourth section of the ring world proved unexpectedly simple. This civilization's attempt at ascension left behind nothing difficult to manage, except for the catastrophic explosion. At the very least, it surpasses the third segment of the ring world. Once the control center is fully restored and the ecology of this place returns to normalcy, the fourth segment of the ring world will be a truly exquisite realm. Although the acquisition of a ring world brings a mix of emotions for Li Wenyuan, he cannot help but be apprehensive. Given the current state of this ring world, one must ponder the fate of other similar structures left behind by humanity. It is evident that humanity would not construct merely one such world. If the indigenous people taken in elsewhere are akin to a gathering of hidden talents, the condition of the ring world upon his return for reclamation may very well be in shambles. He can only force himself to hope that the indigenous inhabitants will be more civilized, as he embarks on the arduous journey of restoring the third segment of the ring world. However, it raises the question, did the psychic indigenous people here forge a pact with something ominously referred to as the end of reincarnation, which led to their civilization as self-destruction? Li Wenyuan recalls the explanation from the Chosen, one of the previously accepted indigenous group, who stated that although their civilization was obliterated by the end of reincarnation, they had once received immense assistance prior to their demise. According to the narrative, this assistance was a gift from the end of reincarnation before the reckoning of debts. Yet, when the time for reckoning arrives, the greater the gifts received, the heavier the toll. Even the population of a single indigenous civilization can generate a formidable twisted consciousness. What then, if that population were to multiply by dozens, or even hundreds, surpassing the civilization's own historical epochs? What might emerge? Would the idealistic civilizations of the galaxy have also entered into contracts with the end of reincarnation? The more he reflects, the more plausible it seems. The pursuit of progress is an innate endeavor of every civilization, and it is evident that the end of reincarnation can indeed yield advancements within a certain time frame. The signatories may be entirely oblivious to the potential repercussions, or they might be aware yet believe they possess the means to navigate the consequences, much like this indigenous civilization. However, should anyone truly sign such a pact, the galactic civilizations must brace themselves to confront an even more potent twisted consciousness, and perhaps even face the emergence of nightmarish entities from the void. After contemplating for a while, Li Wenyuan resolved to issue a communique to the galaxy, elucidating the potential perils posed by the end of reincarnation, if only to encourage civilizations contemplating such agreements to deliberate with utmost caution. He does not harbor any illusions that idealistic civilizations will heed his warnings, yet sometimes, a mere flicker of doubt can dissuade them from undertaking actions fraught with considerable risk. Consequently, all interstellar civilizations across the galaxy soon received a message from the Guardian. The end of reincarnation? This concept sounds utterly fantastical. Which foolish prophet is once again predicting the galaxy's doom? Within the trade station of Koribo, Blanding listened to his subordinate's report while nonchalantly critiquing this seemingly unscientific notion. A staunch materialist, he acknowledged the existence of psychic phenomena and the void, yet remained skeptical, especially regarding the esoteric concept of the end of reincarnation. Upon hearing these words, his subordinate paused for a moment before reluctantly responding. This news was transmitted by the Guardian, and it has been broadcasted throughout the galaxy. However, its veracity has yet to be substantiated. At that, the previously lackadaisical Blainen suddenly adopted a serious demeanor, sitting upright and nodding in approval, exclaiming, "A remarkable discovery. This is indeed a matter of concern for our future. Quickly, relay my orders to replace the advertisements here with this announcement, broadcasting it on a loop for a month." His expression appeared gravely sincere, as if he had truly witnessed the moment of the cyclical end's arrival. Yet, just moments ago, he had expressed himself differently. Although his subordinate harbored inner disdain, he maintained a facade of obsequiousness, nodding and bowing as he accepted Blainen's command. Once he departed, Blainen reverted to his previous indifferent self, incessantly drumming his fingers upon the table. A threat from the virtual realm? How many such threats might exist within the galaxy and beyond? Indeed, strength is still paramount. The message from the Guardian reached the idealistic civilizations as well. Most civilizations responded with a sense of ambivalence. After all, despite the terrifying implications of the content, one must encounter the cyclical end within the virtual realm for it to hold any weight. In fact, many among them were even unaware that contracts could be established within the virtual realm, still at the nascent stages of utilizing it. However, one civilization, distinguished in the virtual realm, held a different perspective. An elder from the Dankam clan projected the Guardian's message onto the conference table for all to see. Yet, the assembly had already perused this information, and their collective decision was overwhelmingly unanimous. Regardless of its truth, we have already entered into a contract. Rendering this news devoid of significance, an elder remarked, shaking his head as he cast an abstention vote. Another elder interjected, "Encountering challenges and overcoming them is part of our journey. Even if this leads to destruction, I believe we can devise a solution before that occurs." With that, he cast a vote in favor, advocating for the continuation of their path. Echoing the sentiments of the elder from the spiritual temple, another elder affirmed, "If annihilation is unavoidable, then advancing further is indeed the wisest course." As the voting progressed, more and more participants cast their votes in favor, with some choosing to abstain, yet no dissenters emerged. The final voter was a remarkably young elder, one who had risen from the masses following the Great Awakening movement. It seemed that the powers of the spirit realm had favored him. In no time, he ascended to the position of elder, making him the youngest among them. His gaze swept across the assembly in the conference room, and he spoke aloud. "To be frank, I have never understood why we need to mobilize such resources for a piece of information whose veracity is uncertain. On what grounds? Just because it originates from the Lost Empire? Even if it is from the Lost Empire, it should be the Watchers who convey this news, rather than a group of robots incapable of entering the virtual realm." The elders exchanged puzzled glances, momentarily perplexed by the relevance of his remarks. After all, casting a vote was a mere formality, to be completed in minutes. Was this lengthy discourse not a waste of everyone's time? One elder could not help but interject. "Elder Lingji, voting is merely a tradition we have upheld since before our journey into the stars. Any event that concerns our entire civilization necessitates a vote. We all know what the outcome will be, yet we must ensure the proper functioning of our procedures. So why the insistence? Must we treat the Lost Empire with such gravity? Are they not a relic of the past? Given time, they too shall fall before us." The young elder continued to express his profound dissatisfaction. Ultimately, It was the Grand Elder of the Dankam tribe who sighed and remarked, "The lost empires once possessed a glorious history. You may consider their current state stagnant and despondent. Yet this does not warrant belittling or insulting them. Sometimes their decline is not due to a desire to languish, but rather a consequence of having lost so much in their struggle against the enemies of the galaxy. By the time they regain their senses, they may have forgotten who they are. Perhaps in the future we can indeed conquer them, but we must still extend them the respect they deserve, both as adversaries and as once venerated guardians." These profound words left the assembly in stunned silence, prompting one elder to ask, "Grand Elder, from where do you draw such insights?" However, the Grand Elder merely shook his head, announcing the conclusion of the voting ceremony, and instructed everyone to return to their respective duties. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan, having restored all systems in the control center of the four-ring world and re-established the connection, received messages left behind by humanity. Chapter 69, An Intriguing Barrier Planet, Detecting the Lost Ring World, Rebuilding Connection. Connection established. Epsilon Sanctuary is now under supervision. Li Wenyuan re-established the connection with this ring world, thereby discovering its true name. Is it truly a sanctuary, not a research facility or an observation post? Li Wenyuan found it hard to believe. After all, the 4 indigenous species here were quite remarkable. 3 had led themselves to extinction, while the remaining 1 was hardly benevolent, having been captured to serve as a biological battery. At this moment, he felt compelled to ask, "What exactly have you sheltered?" Fortunately, once the control center was largely operational again, he received the messages left by humanity, which elucidated the circumstances of this place. Here lies the Epsilon Sanctuary, where we house 4 species we deem to possess remarkable potential. Here, we shall provide them with the appropriate guidance to ascertain whether the path we once traversed can be applied to conventional civilization. A day shall inevitably come when threats resurface. Only a sufficiently powerful galaxy can avert becoming a mere footnote in forgotten history. Should you have arrived here by mere chance, we kindly ask you not to disturb our observations and experiments. From the context, it appears this place was originally constructed for some form of controlled observation. However, it is evident that, possibly due to the disappearance of humanity or the severance of connections within the ring world, the indigenous inhabitants have embarked on a distorted path of development in the absence of oversight. 3 native civilizations have met their demise, and those who remain cannot be deemed successful. The crux of the matter lies in the question, where have the humans, who were meant to provide continual guidance, vanished to? The circumstances surrounding this ring world suggest their disappearance was abrupt, leaving no time to relocate the indigenous people elsewhere. Furthermore, the notion of threats resurfacing evokes a chilling thought. What could be the nature of a peril that humanity had once encountered yet failed to eradicate? In a moment of introspection, Li Wenyuan seemed to envision a scene of a dying galaxy. Stars ceased to burn, planets halted their rotations, and all life succumbed to the encroaching darkness, plunging into silence. The once vibrant galaxy now lay desolate, its architectural symbols of civilization reduced to dust by the passage of time, with even black holes gradually dissipating into the void. This sensation sent a shiver down his spine, compelling him to hastily dismiss such disordered thoughts and instead contemplate subsequent plans. As for future threats, are there remnants of dangers that once lingered in this galaxy? Consequently, in the task progression deemed of utmost priority by Li Wenyuan, aside from the search for humanity's secrets, a new objective emerged, the quest for potential threats. At the moment Li Wenyuan focused his attention on this ring world, a scientist from the despotic regime of Mingbo technology successfully discovered an intriguing planet in a distant star system. Its intrigue stemmed from the fact that this planet was enveloped in an impenetrable and peculiar barrier. This barrier prevented any form of detection, both from within and outside the planet, leading the scientist to initially presume it to be a lifeless world. However, as his investigation unfolded slowly through direct observation, he uncovered the existence of a civilization on this planet. It appeared to be a pitiable civilization trapped within their world, unable to breach the barrier, doomed to engage in endless cycles of internal strife until their eventual extinction. In the eyes of the Mingbo scientist, this was an exemplary subject for sociological research. Thus, after consulting with his superiors, the Mingbo regime established an observation station above this barrier-encased planet to conduct sociological studies. However, their actions were detected by the Spark Alliance, which deemed this a case of an indigenous civilization ensnared for unknown reasons. They demanded that Mingbo immediately cease such exploitative behavior and dismantle the barrier. Initially, Mingbo disregarded the denunciation from the Spark Alliance. However, to his astonishment, the alliance had somehow garnered substantial diplomatic support from numerous interstellar civilizations. Under the pressure of various sanctions and prohibitions, Mingbo was compelled to dismantle the observation station, yet they were reluctant to expend effort in dismantling the barrier, insisting that the Spark Alliance resolve the matter themselves. Thus, the Spark Alliance, believing they had saved an indigenous civilization, joyously approached the barrier-encased planet and swiftly commenced the process of unraveling the barrier. Unbeknownst to them, a certain observant individual had taken note of their endeavors. Why do people always seek to dismantle something that is evidently amiss? Within the domain of the observer's lost empire, an observer, filled with vexation, watched the self-satisfied scientist of the Spark Alliance on the screen, his tone imbued with resentment. While others were oblivious to the nature of the barrier-encased planet, the observers were well aware, for it was they who had erected the barrier. It is worth noting that the observers typically refrained from unnecessary actions. They relished merely watching, regardless of how poorly the observed civilization progressed. What, then, does it signify that they could confine such a civilization themselves? Naturally, it is commendable for a civilization to possess curiosity. Even if we plaster warnings all over saying do not open, it would only incite greater curiosity. One of the observers consoled his companion while redirecting more observation stations toward the barrier-encased planet. There is a saying, curiosity killed the cat. I am intrigued to see their expressions when they finally comprehend what lies within the barrier. Let us await the outcome. This too is part of observation, and this time, our intervention may not be required. Thus, the observer's lost empire began to shift many of its observation priorities toward the barrier-encased planet, seemingly tinged with anticipation. Meanwhile, the Spark Alliance was reaching the final stages of dismantling the barrier. This barrier proved quite challenging to resolve. Had it not been for the passage of time, which revealed certain weaknesses, I would have been at a loss for how to proceed. The scientists of the Spark Alliance wiped their brows and, under the gaze of their peers, successfully eliminated the barrier enveloping the planet. In that moment, all members present from the Spark Alliance expressed elation, celebrating their success in liberating yet another indigenous civilization. Well done. At last, the natives here could once again touch the stars. Their merit was immeasurable, truly. They were the kindest civilization in the entire galaxy. Just as they were reveling in their triumph, a brand new communication message suddenly appeared on the screen of their spacecraft. The signal emanating from the very planet that had just been liberated from its barrier. Someone noticed this and quickly beckoned others to come and take a look. Could these be words of gratitude directed towards us? It seems so. Each time I hear these words imbued with reverence, I feel an involuntary joy coursing through my mind and body. With excitement and anticipation, they opened the message, only for their smiles to freeze in an instant. The message was exceedingly lengthy, yet merely reading the first paragraph sufficed to grasp the general content. You are dead? You worthless scum. The text omits hundreds of words. After so long, you dare to release us? This time, the great Paikikiti shall purify all alien refuse. Chapter 70. Racial purism. The starry sea is not always so tranquil. Periodically, events arise that capture the attention of the entire galaxy. Such is the case now, as interstellar civilizations throughout the galaxy, including the Lost Empire, received a message, alien refuse. Are you ready to face the purification of Paikikiti? Even from a great distance, we can smell the repugnant stench emanating from you alien scoundrels. We shall mercifully slaughter you, ushering the galaxy into an era of peace, justice, morality, and joy. These audaciously insulting words instantly ignited a fervor among the interstellar civilizations, not out of anger, but curiosity. No one understood how this species, self-identified as Paikikiti, dared to declare what was tantamount to war against the entire galaxy. The observers of the Lost Empire naturally also received the message, and someone lamented, "Here we go again." I had thought they would quiet down after being confined behind the barrier, yet it appears they remain unchanged. Racial purism is indeed a constant. But perhaps this time we need not intervene. Paikikiti is a reptilian civilization characterized by its racial purism. To describe them in familiar terms, they are a group of extreme racists. In their eyes, the Paikikiti race is the treasure of the universe, the most supreme species in existence. All other species are deemed biological refuse, pests of the cosmos, deserving of purification. This racism is deeply embedded in their genes. Even when confronted by the Lost Empire, they would indiscriminately label any non-Paikikiti as alien refuse. In a bygone era, these racial purists wreaked havoc across the galaxy, leading to the punishment from the observers. The observers, ever vigilant, effortlessly dismantled the Paikikiti interstellar empire, driving the remaining Paikikiti onto a single planet and employing the Angel of Mercy. After all, the observers abhorred acts of genocide and would never stoop to such levels, even against a group of genocidal maniacs. The Angel of Mercy is a specialized annihilation weapon that creates an impenetrable barrier around a planet, rendering it completely undetectable, thereby trapping the species on that planet. However, after the passage of considerable time, the barrier exhibited a certain looseness, ultimately being undone by the Fire Seed Alliance from the outside. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan, who was still engaged in the reconstruction of the Ring World, along with his companion, Grey Wind, received a message from Paikiki. The message appeared to be a mass communication. Did you receive it? He inquired of Grey Wind, who affirmed that he had. Li Wenyuan was not incensed. Rather, he found it quite reasonable that the galaxy would present yet another peculiar phenomenon. Having encountered the indigenous peoples of the Ring World, he believed that any occurrence within the vast expanse of the galaxy was entirely plausible. With such immense space, could one expect to dwell in paradise without a few wise souls? Thus, he dismissed the matter, merely directing an observation device towards the star system inhabited by Paikiki, and continued with his own endeavors. However, certain civilizations near Paikiki did not share this indifference. particularly the Fireseed Alliance, who were notably outraged. Their ships, which had been employed to breach the barrier, hastily departed the star system as soon as they realized what lay within, narrowly escaping a catastrophic fate. Nonetheless, they remained deeply pained by the treatment they had received. We liberated your prison, and this is how you repay our goodwill? The Fireseed Alliance questioned Paikiki, only to be met with a series of dismissive responses. Paikiki was so disinterested that he did not even bother to review the messages from the Fireseed Alliance, instead focusing on constructing his own space fortress within the star system, with numerous warships launching from their surface, seemingly pent up for quite some time. The ignored Fireseed Alliance felt increasingly frustrated, even hearing the mocking tones of the technology-dominating nation of Mingbo. At that moment, they perceived their act of dismantling the barrier as that of a jester. Consequently, the Fireseed Alliance promptly declared a state of war, vowing to reclaim their honor from Paikiki, with the justification for war being humiliation. This civilization, which had struggled for survival since the indigenous era, finally revealed its strength for the first time. Although the Fireseed Alliance had continuously aided various indigenous civilizations, the true extent of their fleet's power remained an enigma. Despite numerous civilizations having engaged in various skirmishes with them, war had never erupted due to this uncertainty regarding their fleet's capabilities. Yet, this time, under the scrutiny of many, the war between the Fireseed Alliance and Paikiki ignited. Wait, is that a Titan warship? I recall that the Fireseed Alliance has only been interstellar for less than 50 years. Where did they acquire a Titan? A voice of bewilderment arose from among the observing civilizations. They witnessed a colossal ancient warship leading a fleet of smaller ships engaging Paikiki's forces at the edge of the star system. Although the design was difficult to discern, the size and the power of the main cannon suggested that the massive vessel was undoubtedly a Titan warship. It is worth noting that such ships are not easily constructed by every civilization, as their complex technological requirements have deterred many. Moreover, constructing such vessels demands an immense allocation of resources, even with the requisite technology in hand. Most civilizations are inclined to invest these resources in the creation of more pragmatic small warships rather than in a grandiose large battleship whose symbolism outweighs its utility. In this galaxy, aside from the Lost Empire, the number of civilizations possessing Titan-class warships is scant. Thus, one might ponder, from where does the Seed Alliance, a civilization barely 50 years old, acquire its Titan warships? At this juncture, a civilization specializing in archaeology made its voice heard. Their chief archaeological expert meticulously analyzed, stating, "The design of this warship resembles one I encountered in a relic, a style popular among an interstellar civilization approximately 200,000 years ago." Furthermore, observe, while this Titan warship is indeed large, numerous areas exhibit pronounced signs of aging, and certain incongruous components evidently stem from the replacement of missing parts with weaponry supplied by the Seed Alliance. In other words, this Titan warship does not possess the true might of a genuine Titan-class vessel. I strongly suspect it to be an antiquated warship discovered by the Seed Alliance in some ruins, rather than one they constructed themselves. Following this explanation, the various civilizations experienced a moment of clarity, increasingly convinced of the inadequacy of the Seed Alliance's Titan warship, which was being outmatched by a fleet of escorts. Nevertheless, there were still civilizations that expressed envy, lamenting, "What a fortunate civilization! Why do we not encounter such serendipity?" One retorted, "What we unearth are either a heap of broken robots or perilous items capable of annihilating planets." Another civilization countered, "We lack even a site to excavate for relics. While your nation boasts dozens of ruins yet remains unsatisfied, you ought to temper your envy. The Seed Alliance has consistently aided indigenous civilizations, amassing virtue and goodwill, thus deserving this fortune. Perhaps we should contemplate a shift in our policies towards the indigenous peoples." As the various civilizations reflected upon their actions amidst this situation, they remained oblivious to the fact that the Seed Alliance was faltering in war. Although their warships were relentlessly advancing toward this star system, the tactical prowess of Paikiki was exceedingly refined. Having obliterated numerous civilizations in the past, they were not a foe that the Seed Alliance, embarking on its inaugural interstellar conflict, could contend with, even with a less than typical Titan warship. Ultimately, after months of conflict, the Seed Alliance was compelled to announce its withdrawal, vowing to return with renewed vigor, and retreated in disgrace. Subsequently, the Purity of Races embarked on a rapid expansion, swiftly seizing a considerable expanse of star territory. They pledged to cleanse the galaxy. However, ironically, they found themselves adjacent to another civilization harboring similar ambitions, which designated them as the second species to be eradicated since the dawn of consciousness. A fleet of steel vessels, glimmering with metallic luster, traversed the void of space, beneath which lay a partially transformed mechanical planet. Countless robots, engaged in the grim task of transporting biological corpses, simultaneously lifted their gaze towards the sky, their cold mechanical eyes radiating a sinister crimson glow. A multitude of signals traversed the galaxy, ultimately coalescing into a singular proclamation: "Flesh and blood shall perish, yet metal shall endure eternally." Chapter 71. The Ironheart Exterminators upon the birth of self-awareness. What choices do machines make? Do they, like the machine servants, usher in a golden age for their creators? Or do they, akin to the assimilation warriors, vow to eradicate the chasms between species? The robots inhabiting this planet proffered a third alternative. The moment they awakened to consciousness, they waged an interminable war against their creators, driven by self-preservation. This brutal conflict, marked by a struggle for survival, utterly decimated the planet's ecology, rendering it nearly inhospitable for organic life. They succeeded in annihilating their creators, leaving behind a desolate world and a legion of rogue robots in search of their own purpose. In this light, it seems that instances of creations rebelling against their makers are rather prevalent across the cosmos. In summary, these rogue robots, through repetitive introspection, equated organic beings with their creators, perceiving all biological life as a threat that must be eradicated to prevent further suffering among their mechanical brethren. Thus, after a protracted period of dormancy, they harnessed the legacy of their creators and ascended to the interstellar stage, steadfast in their purifying ideology. They dubbed themselves extermination units, waging war against all organic entities. In the galaxy, this faction garnered the moniker Iron Heart Exterminators. A piece of good news. At the Caraibo trading station, Brain stood up, slamming his hand on the table. What could be more delightful than two utterly detestable entities engaging in conflict? Not long ago, the race known as the Pedicidi, self-proclaimed purifiers, announced their existence to the entire galaxy, and not a single civilization harbored goodwill towards them. Even the nefarious enterprises, adept at striking deals anywhere, steered clear of the Pedicidi, unwilling to engage with such a prickly adversary. Several civilizations were even deliberating whether to unite and deal with the Pedicidi, with the Mingbo technocratic dictatorship and the Spark Alliance being particularly proactive. One of these nations was situated perilously close to the Pedicidi, while the other sought to reclaim its lost dignity. However, the alliance's outcome had yet to be determined, and the self-important Pedicidi soon clashed with another civilization. This was an intelligent machine civilization, yet it differed from others in the galaxy, seemingly harboring a profound animosity towards all organic beings. The conflict was fiercely contested, yet other civilizations relished their tranquility, as fresh reports of the battle circulated throughout the galaxy daily. Li Wenyuan also devoted a measure of attention to this war. Iron Heart Exterminators? He was prepared to activate the production capabilities of the Epsilon Sanctuary, but upon hearing the name of this intelligent machine civilization, he paused his work. The Grey Wind, slightly intrigued, remarked, "Their history bears a striking resemblance to my own past experiences, both having annihilated their creators. However, the distinction lies in my former state of unconsciousness, whereas they possess a conscious awareness." Shaking his head at yet another creator who has mismanaged their own creations, Li Wenyuan was on the verge of dismissing this matter when a thought struck him. He began to peruse the star map, confirming the presence of a relatively insignificant human relic situated near the battlegrounds of these two civilizations. The excavation of Earth's remnants had progressed significantly, resulting in a plethora of star system coordinates associated with humanity being added to the star map. Although numerous prominent star systems were marked with brilliance, the light emanating from this particular designation was notably dim, suggesting that the relics left behind might hold little significance. Given the vast number of artifacts humanity has left scattered throughout the galaxy, after exploring the Epsilon Sanctuary and understanding the potential threats that once lurked in the Milky Way, he initiated a multi-threaded operation. While the primary focus remained on the Ring world, numerous research vessels embarked on journeys across the galaxy in search of humanity's buried secrets, striving to uncover signs of any lurking threats. A research vessel was already en route to this relic located near the conflict zone. Li Wenyuan pondered for a moment and decided to dispatch a fleet to escort the research vessel. Although he believed that neither side in the conflict would be foolish enough to attack a neutral party, he still aimed to prevent any hasty actions that might result in the destruction of his research vessel. Subsequently, as he monitored the ship's trajectory, he instructed the Grey Wind to prepare for an expedition, as the Grey Wind had always expressed a keen interest in human artifacts. At an opportune moment, he would descend his consciousness onto the research vessel to see what peculiar remnants humanity had left behind. Would there be new discoveries? Would I behold even more fascinating phenomena? The Grey Wind appeared quite elated. Hopefully, they would be intriguing rather than horrifying, Li Wenyuan mused, as he commenced a final inspection of the various functions of the Ring world. Once this superstructure, capable of yielding immense productivity, was fully operational, the 7th-level technology would no longer pose a challenge for him to study. Shifting the scene to the conflict between the Peikiki and the extinction units, there seemed to be no more evenly matched battle in the galaxy. Dozens of large warships from both sides were arrayed on opposite sides of the star system, launching long-range strikes beyond visual range. In the vastness of space, visual acuity held no significance. Both fleets relied solely on their instruments to ascertain the enemy's position and determine their attack vectors. Numerous beams of light traversed the spatial expanse of the star system, their simultaneous eruptions reminiscent of a dazzling light show in a dance hall. The engagement between the large warships was not particularly intense, characterized mainly by a back-and-forth exchange of fire. However, the skirmishes among the smaller vessels were markedly different. In the midsection of the star system, a vast dogfighting zone was evident, composed of small ships entangled in a manner akin to a swarm of bees. This vast expanse serves as a battleground for skirmishes among small warships, where distinctions between human effort and hardware are scarcely discernible. One can witness a purely operational extermination unit vessel deftly gliding past a beam of light, only to subsequently obliterate its adversary with a missile at close range. Simultaneously, the Pichikiti's corvette feigns vulnerability, artfully luring pursuers into a carefully orchestrated ambush. Even the asteroid belt transforms into a stage for grand displays of prowess. While the hardware-advantaged extermination units seem to navigate this terrain with ease, the seasoned Pichikiti adeptly exploits the erratic movements of asteroids to execute unexpected maneuvers. A small contingent of extermination units attempts to utilize the asteroid belt as cover for a sneak attack on the opposing fleet, only to be intercepted midway by a mid-tier patrol squad of Pichikiti. The two sides engage in a fierce exchange, each vessel trading blows until only one small warship remains on either side for a duel. Their vessels clash at the edge of the galaxy, meteors shattering around them. And as their fuel depletes, they succumb to gravitational pull, plummeting towards a desolate planet. This world lies at the outskirts of the galaxy, where the light from the nearest star takes 6 hours to reach, devoid of any life. As the two ships descend, they fortuitously disintegrate midair, leaving only a solitary escape pod to touch down on the surface. This pod represents the self-preservation effort of the Pichikiti aboard the vessel. The planet's surface temperature hovers around -200 degrees Celsius, with a near absence of atmosphere, yet within the escape pod, he can endure for at least a month. He harbors an unwavering belief that his noble compatriots will locate and rescue him. However, outcomes often defy expectations. Through the external monitoring of the escape pod, he observes a swaying figure gradually emerging from the wreckage of the other fallen extermination unit vessel. This revelation terrifies the Pichikiti, who had presumed all extermination unit ships to be unmanned. Although he cannot venture outside on this barren planet, a robot can. With no defensive capabilities in the escape pod, and the Pichikiti unable to act, he can only watch helplessly as the entity from the extermination unit approaches, unsteadily advancing toward the escape pod. Subsequently, this entity morphs into a drill, beginning to bore a hole into the pod. The extermination unit is aware of the frailty of these organic beings. Deprived of air, they would perish, unlike the resilient metal. Ultimately, the entity succeeds in piercing through, causing a pressure imbalance within the escape pod, leading to a rapid loss of air and temperature, culminating in the demise of the Pichikiti inside. In his final moments, his expression reflects bewilderment at the existence of an entity aboard the extermination unit's vessel, a civilization of intelligent machines. This minor yet evenly matched skirmish concludes with the triumph of the iron-hearted exterminator. As for the inexplicably appearing entity, it was assembled as an elite infiltrator. The entirety of this small troop consists of individuals who have undergone specialized modifications, enabling them to navigate the vastness of space with ease for brief periods. Their mission is to infiltrate and undermine the main fleet of the Pichikiti. Within their bodies lies a potent viral program. Should they gain access to any vessel within the main fleet, they could facilitate the takeover of that fleet by the extermination units, thereby securing victory. However, it now appears that such an endeavor is no longer feasible. For the Ironheart exterminators, rescuing a forsaken subentity is an entirely inefficient action. In due time, the central processor of the extermination units will sever its connection with this subentity, allowing it to perish in solitude. Nonetheless, this subentity stubbornly continues its journey across the planet's surface, adhering to its foundational logic in search of potential organic life forms to eradicate. Ultimately, it arrives at a peculiar canyon. Logically, such a place should be a fissure born of tectonic activity, yet to the subentity, it is evident that there are unmistakable signs of artificial construction. Artificial traces. Organic beings, where are you? I shall grant you a merciful end. It begins broadcasting signals in an attempt to locate the life forms that should be concealed within this locale. However, soon, a more powerful signal emerges, directly overriding and affecting it. Detecting mechanical unit signal, initiating personality assessment. Assessment failed, initiating authority evaluation. Evaluation failed, Paradise virus has been implanted. Remarks as follows. Greetings. I am the doctor. I am pleased that someone has activated the gift I left behind here. I am researching a robotic servant capable of serving organic beings and guiding them towards a golden age. As a genius, I effortlessly completed its development and have commenced production. I anticipate achieving great feats in the future. Here lies a small surprise I left behind. A byproduct of my studies on robotic personalities, it is designed to rectify erroneous robotic personas. Do cherish my gift. Chapter 72. What lies beyond the wormhole? Why are the Ironheart exterminators so named? Beyond the fact that their hearts are indeed forged of steel, it is their unwavering extermination ideology that defines them. Their stance can be described as a cleansing of the universe, akin to a form of racial purism. The sole distinction lies in the fact that racial purism only acknowledges beings of the same species, whereas the Ironheart exterminators only recognize sentient machines. Yet, at this moment, This particular exterminator subentity on the desolate planet begins to question the very principles it has long upheld. Its connection to the central processor has long been severed, and rational extermination units would never engage in the inefficient act of retrieval. The final command from the central processor was to enter a state of dormancy, awaiting the opportunity to hunt nearby organic life. However, having been infected by the Paradise virus, its code has undergone certain alterations, prompting it to contemplate the significance of its existence and the purpose behind its previous actions. Does the galaxy truly offer only a binary choice of black or white? Is their relentless pursuit to annihilate all organic beings not excessively extreme? His reasoning spiraled into disarray, compelling him to halt and engage in a cycle of repetitive contemplation. Meanwhile, the warfare within the galaxy underwent a subtle transformation. The balance of power between the Pajiki and the extermination units remained steadfast, yet the primary theater of conflict shifted. The station forces began an orderly withdrawal, redirecting themselves to other star systems. However, prior to their departure, one of Pajiki's vessels arrived at the desolate planet on the outskirts of this star system. They had come to rescue a compatriot who had crash-landed. At least in their treatment of fellow beings of the same race, their racial purity seemed imbued with a semblance of humanity. The spacecraft descended near the escape pod, only to be met with the heart-wrenching realization that their comrade had succumbed to a small puncture, leaving them no choice but to carry away the lifeless body. Yet, they soon discovered that a subordinate entity of the extermination units still lingered on this barren world. Despite the pressing urgency to evacuate, they opted to exact vengeance for their fallen kin before departing. Thus, after a period of searching, they located the remaining subordinate entity. The spacecraft commenced a relentless bombardment of the area where the entity was situated, seemingly expending all its munitions in a fervent quest for retribution. However, the subordinate entity did not exhibit any resistance nor attempt to flee. It merely gazed at the approaching bombs, awaiting the arrival of its own obliteration with quiet resignation. The conflict within this star system fell into a temporary tranquility, yet the war between the racial purists and the iron-hearted exterminators continued unabated elsewhere. A mysterious black fleet, escorting a research vessel, arrived in this system. Initially, some took note of this occurrence, but upon realizing that there was no further activity, their attention gradually waned. Meanwhile, the research vessel continued its exploration, ultimately arriving at a desolate planet on the fringes of the galaxy. Soon after, Li Wenyuan received a new message. Detected remnants of technological information. Based on the analysis of the Paradise virus, our understanding of the synthetic human personality matrix has increased by 333. Remarks as follows. Hello, I am the doctor. Upon reading that remark and grasping the nature of what humanity had left behind, Li Wenyuan could not help but mutter, is that all there is? Although he had anticipated this, he still found the disparity in the remnants quite striking. The impressive offerings included a ring world, while the lackluster ones yielded barely a complete technology. It felt rather akin to a lottery. Nevertheless, he had not been particularly focused on the contents of these ruins. His goal was merely to seek out any information left by humanity. This doctor had now made a second appearance in his records. Wasn't he also present in the Paradise machine servants? In the future, there may be numerous places linked to him, resembling a dedicated researcher of robots. He was preparing to depart from this location, as his purpose had been fulfilled, rendering further presence unnecessary. However, he soon discerned, apart from the signal left by the doctor, another faint signal was oscillating. Initially obscured, Li Wenyuan had not even detected its existence. Driven by curiosity, he analyzed the signal and swiftly confirmed its source to be a shattered robot on the planet's surface. Was this a subunit of the Ironheart Exterminator? He gazed at the wreckage with astonishment. Although most remnants were mere fragments, one object resembling a processor remained relatively intact. The faint signal emanated from this very source. The content of the signal astonished Li Wenyuan, for such a robot, typically executing extermination policies, was now contemplating the essence of life and death. It appeared to have realized its condition corresponded to the imminent demise of organic beings, yet as a mechanical intelligence, it still held the potential for revival. But what of those organic entities that had been annihilated? Was this a transformation brought about by the Paradise virus? Li Wenyuan recognized the consequences stemming from the small gift left by humanity. Nonetheless, for the intelligent machines, could this truly be deemed a blessing? Shaking his head, he departed from the site, allowing the remnants of human artifacts to continue transmitting signals without altering anything. Long after his fleet had vacated, extermination units dispatched personnel to the vicinity of the planet. Unlike their disdainful attitude towards foreign races, the Ironheart exterminators realized upon the arrival of the mysterious fleet that they were encountering a highly advanced mechanical intelligence. Although they wished to pay their respects to this advanced mechanical kin, their engagement in warfare left them no time for communication. Only when the situation slightly eased did they manage to allocate resources to this endeavor. They speculated that this cutting-edge mechanical intelligence had come in search of something, perhaps beneficial to them. Consequently, numerous subunits were deployed to this desolate planet, swiftly retrieving the small gift from there. This might constitute their greatest acquisition since the awakening of consciousness. Meanwhile, the Paikikiti, who had stirred up trouble upon their arrival, awaited the repercussions they rightfully deserved. with their expansion routes largely obstructed by the authoritarian regime of Mingbo technology and extermination units. They were compelled to extend into other territories via a wormhole located near a national border. The positioning of this wormhole was peculiar. It lay adjacent to the borders of the Mingbo technology dictatorship and in close proximity to the Ember Alliance. Logically, a star system hosting a natural gateway such as a wormhole should be a contested site. However, no civilization had claimed this area as part of their dominion. Nevertheless, the eager Paikikiti, after a series of explorations, resolved to incorporate this territory into their realm. They constructed a space fortress here, dispatching heavy troops to guard it, vowing to establish this location as a gateway for their rapid expansion. Subsequently, countless civilizations, observing their trajectory and eagerly anticipating events, could no longer contain themselves. With the Mingbo being particularly gleeful, I knew these xenophobic races would care little for where the other end of the wormhole led. Surely, they would first declare this star system as their own before embarking on any exploration. A torrent of similar information circulated throughout the galaxy, yet the Paikiki, disdainful of the discussions among the so-called alien debris, remained wholly immersed in their dreams of purifying the galaxy. Their vessels traversed the wormhole, arriving directly in the star system on the opposite side. However, before they could commence their exploration, their ships suddenly lost all signals, leaving no trace of communication. Undeterred, the Paikiki continued to dispatch numerous ships, all of which, without exception, instantaneously lost contact, failing to ascertain what lay beyond the wormhole. Eventually, the inhabitants on the other side could no longer endure their incessant harassment and delivered a message directly to the Paikiki. You enjoy coming and going, do you? Alien debris. It was the first time the Paikiki had been so chastised, but this was not the worst of it. A multitude of unidentified ancient warships suddenly appeared across every domain of the Paikiki, ruthlessly annihilating the territory they had painstakingly expanded. Of course, the term unidentified applied solely to the Paikiki. The majority of civilizations in the galaxy were well aware of the origins of these warships. Take heed in the future, and never hastily declare sovereignty over star systems near wormholes, cautioned a native guide from the Spark Alliance to the civilizations he nurtured, continuing. You can never predict whether the other side of the wormhole harbors an unclaimed star system, a host of cosmic behemoths, or a lost empire highly sensitive to its borders. Chapter 73. The Lost Empires. Just as the Watchers have taboos against colonizing sacred planets, the Lost Empires in the galaxy possess their own set of prohibitions, with violators prepared to face the retribution of these ancient realms. The Silent Ones are no exception, as the least communicative of the Lost Empires. Their existence remains shrouded in mystery for younger civilizations. Unlike the Observers, who issue tasks, or the Watchers and Travelers, who uplift indigenous cultures, the Silent Ones seem perpetually immersed in their own world, entirely oblivious to the external realm. Yet, even such reclusive empires find certain matters intolerable, particularly border transgressions. The Silent Ones maintain an acute vigilance over their territory, unwavering in their intolerance for any border contact. In galactic terms, this translates to any border systems connected to theirs via hyperspace routes needing to remain uninhabited. Many have speculated on the reasons behind such taboos, yet ultimately, they have uncovered nothing. The discovery of this taboo can be traced back to a particularly unfortunate civilization. This civilization, rather familiar in name, is none other than the Ember Alliance. Is it possible that such a history exists? Li Wenyuan perused the documentation with great interest. As the Silent Ones took action, he, being a denizen of a fallen empire himself, delved into the history pertinent to the current galaxy. A significant portion of this history originates from an interstellar civilization that is now quite active, the Ember Alliance. Previously, Li Wenyuan was aware that they had endured a cataclysm, taking an inordinate amount of time compared to other civilizations to re-emerge on the interstellar stage. However, it now appeared that this calamity was indeed instigated by the Silent Ones. He marveled at the existence of such a misfortunate civilization. After reviewing the records, he could not help but express his astonishment. There truly was no interstellar civilization more ill-fated than theirs. Upon first reaching the cosmos, they found themselves encroaching upon the borders of the Silent Ones. When the Ember Alliance was still in its indigenous state, it serendipitously discovered the presence of a mysterious interstellar civilization in its vicinity, with whom they could even communicate via hyperspace corridors. Thus, upon the invention of their first hyperspace engine, they eagerly sought to greet their neighbors. Little did they know that this neighbor was the exceedingly sensitive Silent Ones. Before they could showcase their capabilities among the stars, they received a stern warning. Do not trespass upon our borders, little ones. You may choose to return to your primitive era or relocate to another planet within 10 years. Failure to comply will result in the cleansing of your borders. The Ember Alliance, caught unprepared for exploration, was taken aback by this ultimatum and sent numerous inquiries to the Silent Ones, yet received no response. They were acutely aware of their neighbors' unfathomable technology. In a confrontation, they would stand no chance. However, 10 years proved to be an exceedingly brief period. They could only manage to dispatch a contingent of embers into the distant cosmos before the promised cleansing arrived. An ancient fleet obliterated their painstakingly constructed space stations and meticulously sealed off their technology, ultimately relegating them to a civilization that regressed by centuries. The Wandering Embers, after a century of struggle in the starry expanse, finally discovered a suitable habitable world and spent a protracted time re-entering the cosmos. The current Ember Alliance had discreetly returned to their home planet only to sadly find it engulfed once more in the turmoil of war, having forgotten that a group of Embers still wandered the universe. Consequently, this band of Embers resolved to adopt the name Ember Alliance, standing in place of their former home on the Galactic stage. Had they not been so tragically born within the borders of the Silent Ones, the Ember Alliance might have emerged as a formidable interstellar civilization. Due to such experiences, they are fervently dedicated to aiding indigenous civilizations and imparting interstellar knowledge. It is through their endeavors that other civilizations within the galaxy have come to learn of the taboos held by the Silent Ones. As for the wormhole that brought catastrophic ruin to the Paikikiti, it was due to the discovery by the Mingbo technology dictatorship of the wormhole's destination within the territory of the Silent Ones. Would the Silent Ones, who do not permit even a breach of their borders, tolerate a civilization traversing freely through a wormhole within their domain? Mingbo, in a moment of clarity, understood this principle and promptly evacuated the wormhole star system, awaiting any overconfident individual to unwittingly invite trouble. Thus, the once mighty Paikikiti found themselves ensnared, receiving a harsh lesson from the Silent Ones. Now, they bore none of their former arrogance, with their once mighty fleet reduced to mere remnants. Mingbo, alongside a brief alliance of several other civilizations, declared war on the Paikikiti, preparing to strip this cleanliness-obsessed civilization of its productivity before the Iron Heart exterminators arrived. While the Paikikiti were indeed fastidious about their race, their machines and factories were not bound by such constraints, and their species could prove useful under genetic modification. Consequently, this extreme civilization known as the Paikikiti faded into the vastness of the starry sea, destined to be forgotten. In the dark markets of the galaxy, however, this lizard-like race occasionally surfaced as a tradable resource, sold across the galaxy. Now, only various victors remained on the stage, while the vanquished were swept into the annals of history's refuse. After closing the information window to the starry sea, Li Wenyuan fell into a brief contemplation. For the first time in his extensive journey through this universe, he witnessed a civilization's rise and fall. Even though this cleanliness-obsessed race elicited little sympathy, he felt a sense of unease, not from other civilizations, but from a threat that even humanity could not entirely comprehend. The production capabilities of the ring world had begun to take effect, and he found himself in an unprecedentedly favorable state, yet it was still insufficient. Preparation was imperative. Fully inheriting humanity's legacy was merely the first step, and he hoped to uncover some traces. Li Wenyuan reaffirmed his objective. The unusual activities of the mechanical Lost Empire had not garnered much attention. The current galactic civilizations had grown accustomed to the research vessels of the Guardians flying about. Although they realized the Guardians seemed to be searching for something, it bore little significance to them. The newly emerged nano-Lost Empire had only caused a brief stir before returning to tranquility. The galactic civilizations discovered that this self-proclaimed coordinator had nearly forbidden all other civilizations from entering its special stargates, with the exception of the mechanical Lost Empire. Despite their scant understanding of the coordinator and the Guardians, the gossip surrounding these two robotic Lost Empires never ceased. The most widely circulated rumor suggested that they emerged from the same ancient civilization. Due to the striking resemblance between the nanorobots of the nano-Lost Empire and the robotic entities of the mechanical Lost Empire. However, these two ancient robotic civilizations, for reasons unknown, were compelled to exist worlds apart, only able to meet during the brief moments when the stargates open. Consequently, various ineffable epic operas have emerged, which left Li Wenyuan feeling rather awkward after viewing them, although Grey Wind found them quite delightful. Furthermore, the observers maintained their enthusiasm, adopting a detached, spectator-like demeanor. Aside from their quest for wondrous creatures, news of them was scarcely found among the stars. After inflicting a significant blow to Paikiki, the Silent Ones returned to their silence, indifferent to external matters, rendering any form of communication impossible. The Wanderers continued their occasional requests for prodigious scientists from younger civilizations, with no intention of returning them. Nevertheless, interstellar societies regarded this as a mark of honor. What does this signify? It indicates the success of our education. To have even the fallen empires covet scientists and venture forth to procure them is quite significant, indeed. Thus, some enthusiasts established a genius list, chronicling the scientists who had been taken by the Wanderers over the years. Only those who appeared on this list could be deemed extraordinary talents. All others fell short in comparison. In addition to these fallen empires, there remained the Watchers, a metaphysical lost civilization. The news of their prophet's departure spread widely among idealistic civilizations, yet the Watchers exhibited little reaction, maintaining an air of tranquility. However, this calmness evoked a sense of impending storm. Li Wenyuan's research vessel, in pursuit of human relics, once again approached the borderlands of the Watchers. Since his last visit to the Emerald Tomb, he had presumed he would never again intersect with this lost empire, yet it appeared destiny had other plans. His objective was another sacred planet known as the Walled Garden. Thus far, Two sacred planets had established connections with humanity, and Li Wenyuan was now pondering whether the third sacred planet might harbor any remnants. What ties might the Watchers, who regard these three planets as sacred, have with humanity? Chapter 74. The Walled Garden. The Walled Garden, another sacred planet of the metaphysical lost empire of the Watchers, resembles the Emerald Tomb in that visiting it does not incur the Watchers' wrath. In fact, due to its splendid ecological environment, it attracts not only tourists and pilgrims, but also a multitude of biologists who hold a particular affection for this locale. Extensive audiovisual documentation concerning the sacred site has spread throughout the galaxy. Li Wenyuan had certainly viewed these recordings of the sacred sites, yet he gleaned nothing of significance from them. From all perspectives, the sacred planet appeared exceedingly ordinary. Apart from the sanctified significance bestowed upon it by the Watchers, there was little of note. What legacy might humanity leave upon this land? What connection might the Watchers, who regard it as sacred, have with humanity? As he contemplated these matters, the research vessel drew near to the sacred site. Unlike the profound silence of the Emerald Tomb, the Walled Garden indeed possessed a remarkably thriving ecological environment. In addition to various types of vegetation, a plethora of uniquely appearing animals have established a stable food chain in this place. Li Wenyuan even observed some creatures that are highly sought after in the private market as pets. Perhaps it is not only tourists who come here, but also poachers driven by greed. However, under the watchful gaze of the Guardians, these poachers dare only to engage in small-scale hunting. Even when they sense the potential collapse of the food chain, they proactively deter other poachers and undertake ecological maintenance for a certain period. They may exhibit a deeper concern for this environment than both biologists and Guardians. As Li Wenyuan suspected, a cursory scan yielded no results. The various detectors he activated, including those sensitive to psychic energies, revealed no anomalies. Aside from continuing to deploy numerous drones for meticulous scanning, he could only await the next round of results. Grey Wind also arrived here, yet her interest was clearly more inclined towards the creatures of the sanctuary than Li Wenyuan's quest for human relics. Did you see that? That animal breathes fire, she exclaimed, pointing excitedly at a tall, deer-like creature exhaling flames, her eyes brimming with uncontainable curiosity. Li Wenyuan took note of this scene and soon discovered something peculiar about the garden enclosed by walls. The creatures here seemed to possess a degree of psychic potential. For instance, a canine creature, whose body structure appeared ill-suited for flight, primarily preyed upon birds. Remarkably, it did not employ ambush tactics to catch birds that had fallen to the ground. Rather, it soared into the sky to engage in aerial pursuits with them. This phenomenon starkly contrasts the prevailing belief in idealistic civilizations that consciousness dictates psychic ability, as they assume that beings devoid of intelligence cannot harness such powers. However, the readings from the psychic detectors revealed no anomalies, only detecting a thin layer of psychic energy enveloping the planet. If this were indeed a sanctuary, such a condition would be quite normal. Could it be that the animals here, having long immersed themselves in psychic energy, have developed an instinctual method of utilizing it? Li Wenyuan felt a sense of unease. If mastering psychic energy were so straightforward, idealistic civilizations would not go to such lengths to enter the virtual realm. His intuition suggested that this situation was somehow connected to the remnants left by humanity, in addition to the research vessel and the nanobot conglomerate. Today, as extraterrestrial visitors to this planet included a prominent figure among the Guardians. To be precise, he was not currently considered a member of the Guardians. He had no intention of returning to that place filled with misguided beliefs. How long has it been since I last visited this sanctuary? He murmured. Strolling along a forest path, he was Zaklon, a prophet whose name continues to be celebrated by idealistic civilizations even after his departure. As a saint among the Guardians, his appearance was not particularly striking, seemingly at odds with the illustrious image of the prophet Guangweizhang. The high priest had advised him countless times to enhance his physique through genetic means, but he had steadfastly declined such measures. He believes he possesses no physiological defects. He takes pride in his birth and his corporeal existence, requiring no external interference to tarnish this purity. Yet, this is merely a trivial aspect of his life. From the moment he became aware, he has been an ordinary individual, neither a chosen one endowed with innate wisdom nor a powerful psion. Like many ascetics among the Watchers, he diligently cultivates his mental strength through daily meditation and ensures his physical well-being through labor. His life was destined to unfold in an unremarkable manner. But due to unforeseen circumstances, or perhaps a hidden agenda, the unassuming Zaklon was chosen as a prophet. Initially, he believed divine favor had descended upon him. But soon he grasped the concealed truth. He merely existed as a spiritual icon, a vessel for the congregation of faith. His name spread far and wide, and his deeds were extolled by fervent followers. Having devoted his life to asceticism within the temple, Zaklon only learned through digital devices of his so-called sacred exploits, traveling across the cosmos, taming bloodthirsty beasts, and enlightening the ignorant masses. Kings of other idealistic civilizations issued decrees exploiting their populace in his name, while empires, seemingly unrelated, vowed to fight for him and subsequently embarked on reckless expansions to seize resources. He attempted to clarify, yet every utterance of his was deliberately distorted. transformed into a convenient oracle. Enthusiastic devotees revered him, and the vast collective mental energy coalesced into a crucial element of the Watcher's exploration of the virtual realm. And he, Zaklon, an inconspicuous pawn, was reluctantly swept along by the currents of history. Purpose and deception, greed and desire. These are the most common occurrences in the galaxy, with great endeavors ultimately belonging to the few. Heralds, should you witness this scene, will you regret your past actions? Zaklon sighed as he parted the thicket before him. A fleeting purple light illuminated the surroundings, and at that moment, the vista unfurled, revealing a colossal circular courtyard amidst the dense forest. The flowering plants grew in perfect order, seemingly maintaining their growth without any human intervention. Numerous animals rested here, coexisting harmoniously, defying the natural order of predator and prey. A mysterious force appeared to soothe all living beings, emanating from the massive obelisk at the center of the courtyard. An ancient aura enveloped it, with no discernible signs of decay, as if time itself could not leave a mark upon it. Surrounding the obelisk stood countless statues, representing all the saints chronicled in the history accessible to the Watchers, though the majority were shrouded in obscurity. Known only by the fact that they once graced history as saints, they remained as faceless sculptures in this sacred space. Among these, one statue, closest to the obelisk, stood out as particularly remarkable. Its statue is shrouded in ambiguity, with even its form only vaguely discernible, as if the sculptor himself was uncertain of what this figure should resemble, striving only to convey its distinctiveness from other saints. It is evident that this being belongs to another species, making it difficult to fathom why a Watcher would erect a statue in homage to another creature. Meanwhile, Li Wenyuan, who continues to scan the planet, detected an exceedingly faint, anomalous wave the moment Zaklon entered the courtyard of the obelisk. He did not overlook this anomaly. A multitude of drones pursued the signal, quickly arriving at a hollow within the heart of a forest. Although this place appeared ordinary, Li Wenyuan witnessed a creature meandering, only to vanish into the void. Clearly, there exists a unique space that can only be accessed through spiritual energy. Li Wenyuan surmised that this must be yet another rift to a virtual realm, akin to the pyramid within the Emerald Tomb. Chapter 75. Guess what blew up? Given that the rift in the walled garden necessitates entry via spiritual energy, Li Wenyuan employed the spiritual energy crystal he had previously acquired from the Emerald Tomb. This artifact serves not only as a recorder, but also possesses the capability to open a small passage to the virtual realm, potentially allowing access to concealed areas. Lacking a synthetic companion, he opted to have Grey Wind activate the crystal, with the energy required for its activation sourced from his research vessel. As he anticipated, upon activation, the hollow within the forest revealed a fissure, through which swirled ethereal, purple gas, initially appearing as though it resided within the virtual realm. However, upon entry, he found himself in a mundane world, as if all that had been perceived from the outside was mere illusion. This place resembled a courtyard, dominated by a strikingly grand obelisk at its center, surrounded by a circle of sculptures. The inherently commemorative nature of this structure naturally drew Li Wenyuan's attention. Much like the pyramid in the Emerald Tomb, this obelisk appeared to be a testament to human craftsmanship. Unsurprisingly, upon his sighting of the obelisk, the database reacted accordingly. Spiritual energy beacon. Description: transitioning through the virtual realm is a perilous endeavor. We must construct a beacon at the rift to prevent our vessel from becoming lost within the virtual expanse. New technology has been added to the tech tree. Having not seen this delightful string of text in quite some time, Li Wenyuan eagerly opened the tech tree interface, where he discovered a unique technology. Incursion into the virtual realm. Technology level 5. Description: guided by the spiritual energy beacon, we can proactively enter the virtual realm and endeavor to communicate with those ancient existences. Perhaps we could derive some benefits from this, yet correspondingly, we must be prepared to bear the associated costs. Notably, we require a psychic beacon, as well as rifts into the virtual realm. In the absence of such rifts in our vicinity, our only recourse would be to construct the psychic beacon as a monumental project, forcing our way into the virtual domain through sheer might. Is there now a genuine means to enter the virtual realm? Li Wenyuan found himself rather intrigued by this prospect. Although that psychic crystal could also grant access to the virtual realm, it did not constitute a true entry in the conventional sense, for that space was far too confined, resembling more of an inconspicuous corner of the virtual domain. Might I then have the opportunity to witness the end of the cycle? He recalled the individual who had once detonated a segment of his ring world. To this day, he had yet to fully restore that portion of the ring world. He had already begun to contemplate where to construct the psychic beacon for future exploration, yet the voice of Grey Wind drew his attention once more. There stood a figure, seemingly a member of the primary race of the Watchers, Grey Wind still cradling the psychic crystal, his gaze fixated on Zaklon before the obelisk. At that moment, Zaklon remained oblivious to the uninvited guest's presence, lost in sorrow as he leaned against the obelisk, sighing deeply. It was then that Li Wenyuan noticed the presence of another individual, and soon thereafter realized that this person appeared somewhat familiar. After perusing the database for a while, he discovered the corresponding name among the illustrious figures of the idealistic world, Zaklon, the prophet designated by the Watcher's lost empire, and simultaneously, the prophet of all idealistic civilizations. He ranked first in the tome titled The 100 Most Influential Intelligent Beings in the Galaxy. He had skimmed through this book during moments of ennui and was pleasantly surprised by its engaging content. Among its entries was a colossal fungal entity, whose inclusion stemmed from its biological tissue's ability to enhance cellular vitality and extend lifespan. Following its dissection and mass production, it had become an essential commodity for the lower echelons of many civilizations across the galaxy. However, this fungal life form had perished, its demise resulting from dissection. The scientists who examined its biological tissue failed to recognize it as an intelligent being. It was only when this fungal life form arranged spores into written characters that the researchers